wave of jamming pulses across the entire engagement zone. 3:50 a.m. On the Type 26 ship, the monitoring screens began to stutter. The SBS track split in two on the Type 26 screen, then shifted off its true position for a few seconds. The automatic target locking system continuously reacquired and lost lock, triggering an unending series of flashing red alerts in the operations room. Above, as the A-10 flight formation maintained their attack pattern, the navigation indicators on the HUD began to flash erratically. One aircraft had to pull up abruptly when the target data below deviated from its actual position. Another switched to raw data mode, reducing the reliability of the data link to maintain flight control. Below the surface, the SBS boats constantly change course, and RHIB makes a sharp turn to avoid colliding with a target sliding to the left on the screen, but is actually still heading straight ahead. The attack boats take advantage of that moment to accelerate and squeeze into the gaps in the formation, closing the distance by several dozen meters with each turn. 3:54 a.m. The EA-18G Growler dives into the jamming zone, activating its full electronic scanning range. The analysis channels begin reconstructing the signal map, peeling back the overlapping layers of emissions from Smirtos. Within seconds, a primary emission cluster is locked on. The Growler switches to direct suppression mode, feeding the jamming back toward the source. Smirtos reacts immediately. The locked-on signal vanishes from the scan spectrum, then reappears at various false locations, pulling the entire analysis system off course. The Growler must continuously switch frequency bands, chasing each fragment of the emission cluster as it fragments across the electronic spectrum. As the tracking loop tightens sufficiently, the primary source signal on Smirtos is locked in place for a brief moment. The lock parameters are confirmed, and the enhanced electronic suppression beam is directed precisely at that location. As the pressure reached its peak, Smirtos transmitted a final encoded pulse. It flashed for a single beat, cutting through the thickening layer of interference, then left the combat zone in a fixed direction out toward the open sea, vanishing from all monitoring screens in an instant. Just minutes after the encrypted signal from Smirtos vanished from the tracking system, the Type 26 suddenly detected additional new signs of movement beneath the surface. The Type 26's sonar began displaying underwater tracks rapidly accelerating toward the formation. In the air, the A-10 squadron was still maintaining combat patrols following the engagement with the manpads-equipped boats. As the sonar data from the Type 26 was transmitted, the A-10 squadron immediately spread out, shifting to observe the sea surface from a lower altitude, to search for signs penetrating the mixed clutter between the water surface and the moving targets above. 4:05 a.m. The sonar tracks continued to accelerate. The underwater targets did not surface or change course. They simply cut straight through the water ahead like spears seeking a point of impact. The Type 26 immediately swiveled all sensors forward while issuing a full area alert to the SBS forces. The Merlin HM-2 is launched from the ship's deck almost immediately. Before the rotors have fully stabilized, it deploys sonar buoys in a rhythmic pattern. On the combat display, individual underwater contacts begin to appear, but they continuously split apart and converge again as if attempting to penetrate a tracking network. The A-10s began their intervention. Two of them descended to a lower altitude, flying along the axis of engagement and using optical sensors to scan the sea surface in low-light conditions. From above, they began to notice unusual movements on the water. Not natural waves, but long streaks moving in sync with sonar data below. One A-10 lowered its altitude, maintaining a safe distance, then began the suspect area to the 26. But just as the areas were being delineated, the underwater target suddenly changed speed. One sailed across the SBS's path, while the other split off, seeking an escape route between the Merlin's sonar scans. On the Type 26, the sonar was constantly flooded with intersecting tracks. The Merlin HM-2 began to launch buoys, form a sensor network covering area formation. The underwater target deployed scans, attempting to break through each tightening layer of control. 4:18 a.m. continued circling overhead, maintaining contact with Type 26 while keeping a direct visual watch on the sea surface to avoid losing track as underwater changed constantly by second. Warthog left unguarded. The air and the water were simultaneously tracking to slow down. In that brief moment, The English area ahead of the SBS became a tactical choke point where every movement was pursued from 3 directions. When the final line of defense on the surface and underwater were breached, the Smyrtos switched to a defensive posture. No more everything means launched on the ship's hull itself, antenna arrays, communication module, and swarm connected with the rest of the system. In the air, A-10 Squadron immediately lowered its attitude, targeting the clearable of emissions on ships. The squadron locks on each target in sequence: the forward mission cluster, the central sensor array, then the exposed control equipment of the in position. Each A-10 leads launch a straight, stable flight path. The successive entry through the smear to the antenna cluster's transmitting signals were obliterated in stages. The command and control system was severed with each explosion, disrupting the remaining communication links we immediately deployed units. Optical screens, signals from the craft began to falter. The drone's information with no high ambush force begins to disintegrate right in the midst of combat. 4:35 a.m. Smyrtos is completely isolated, being transmitted, and there's no tactical response from within. The ship slips through the English Channel like a mass of metal that has lost all control systems. The Type 26 moved into a control position. The SBS re-established a perimeter around the area. Approach teams board the ship, sealed off the remaining technical area control center and GA from Richmond. The Smyrtos was then towed to British port under close supervision. Data extracted from the ship's internal systems is to this layer by layer, far more class conventional oil tank. It indicates that Smyrtos is not merely oil tank, but a swarm carrying platforms operating on international shipping routes. If similar platforms still exist there, operating on busy shipping lanes, the question remains in the air among NATO commanders. Is this the end of an ambush, or merely the first time they've touched in a much larger network? 2:12 p.m. the Baltic Sea off the coast of Kaliningrad. The Su-27 fighter jet screamed through the sky at 600 miles per hour and pulled planes away from a U.S. maelstrom. The Su-27 banked hard and hundreds of gallons of raw jet fuel into the drone's nose. The drone's engine choked on the fumes, and Su-27 tilted its wing and clipped the drone's propeller. The USMQ-9 Reaper became a slow spiraling death dive. The drone was blind, and now the US was too. The moment the drone hit the water, the Russian S-400 missile battery on the coast locked on the nearby NATO ship. On a bridge of 3 U.S. troops, a high-pitched scream, the sound of a missile system telling you that you are seconds away from dying. The Russian force had just cleared the air and a launcher. They were waiting for the U.S. to flinch. Instead, they got a nightmare. Response was a physical shingling the earth across the Polish border. 3 massive C-17 Globemaster transport planes descended through the overcast. These aircraft are essentially flying warehouses, and as the ramps hit the concrete of the four areas, they unloaded the Typhon weapon system. As the trucks reached their preset coordinates, the transformation began. The hydraulic pistons hissed, tilting the containers upward until they pointed directly aside. Inside each container sat 4 vertical launch cells, already loaded with Tomahawk cruise and SM-6 interceptors. By Tomahawk, the US brought a GAU battery. Because these launchers looked like any truck on the road. Russian satellites between a vehicle and a platform. The noose was being laid out, 1 truck at a time. Behind the Typhon unit, the 8 missile batteries began their own deployment. The M/MQ sets were leveled and powered up. They began searching for the signature of Russian rockets. This system is designed to create an invisible dome of protection over the region. Anything that enters that dome without the credit shake is marked destruction. But the Patriot is only half of the shield. The real way arrived in the form of 3 MSE. They are not just pure physical force to turn an enemy missile into dust. As the launchers reached their positions, the digital network, the link, was activated. It allows a Patriot radar in one town to talk to a Typhon launcher another 50 miles away. If a Russian jet pops on the screen, the entire wall of fire knows exactly where it is instantly. In the heart of Kaliningrad, the Krasko electronic war system roared. This is not weapon fire, it fires noise. Suddenly, the eye of the NATO force went dim. The Tomahawk missile in the heart being drowned by Russian shouting. This was the Russian advantage. The home field environment. They don't need GPS behind the Polish border. They're already standing on it. First, the bob noise. An Isan missile roared off its rail. Isan is a doesn't fly in a predictable. A second follow the third. 3 white trains stretched into the Baltic sky, marching toward U.S. missions. U.S. radars were slipping through the noise of the Krasuka 4. The Russian strategy was rational. Use the noise to hide the punch. The between and the U.S. was listening over every single second. Then the Russian ranks the U.S. but it's near 5 miles per hour. It was a shuttle trap designed to use fire all their intercepts at each, while the U.S. followed behind it. If the U.S. reacts to the DOI, they are empty and defenseless for the real attack. If they don't react and the DOI turns out to be real, the battery is destroyed. The air the force as the Patriot launch prepared to fire. The U.S. had to choose fire or wait for a hit that might never let them fire again. At the 2-second mark, the U.S. Patriot battery engaged 4 PC-3 MSE intercept their launch rails. Unlike old mills, they had explosive charge to blow up near a target. The interceptor EA-18G Growler. The ship was all from 4,500 miles per hour. The U.S. intercept was climbing to meet at 3,000 miles per hour. If the interceptor is off by even an inch, it will hit right by target. It's like trying to hit a speeding bullet with another bullet while you're running on separate roller coasters. The U.S. MPQ-65 radar switched into a burn-through mode, concentrating all of its energy into a single beam. It cut right through electronic noise. For a split second, the tracking is stabilized. The first U.S. interceptors into the decoy. One PAC-3 at each its course, its nose motors firing and slammed into the decoy. There's only a blinding light energy and straight into dust. The decoy was gone. But real threat to Iskander-M warheads was coming. But the U.S. spot from the tree. 50 miles away, one of the Typhon trucks, the ones hidden in the ship containers, fired a different weapon, the SM-6. The SM-6 climbed high into the air, down just from above. Now the Russian warheads were being hunted to the Patriot was coming at them from the front, the SS on the top. The first Iskander-M tried to swerve. It tilted its fins, attempting a turn that was off a normal jet, but PAC-3 MSE anticipated the move. The U.S. interceptor fired its motors in a coordinated on the path of the run. The collision was absolute. The nose of the U.S. punched straight into the skin of the Russian warhead. The force was so high, the high explosives inside didn't even have time to detonate. The entire missile was simply vaporized. The second Russian was still alive. It had used the explosion as shield, hiding the debris. It was now 5 miles from the U.S. battery. That's less than 4 seconds of flight time, and the Patriot launcher empty. They were still firing the missile into the fire. The Russian Nightmare was about to land. Then the SS diving from above made its move. Its own seeker, a minute built into the nose of the missile, found the heat Russian warhead. The SM-6 adjusted, screaming downward in a vertical dive. The two missiles met less than 2,000 feet above ground. The Russian warhead was so close to the target that the U.S. felt the its frames, but the shield had held. The U.S. had sent nearly $2 million in interceptors to stop a few minutes of Russian fire. It was expensive, but the NATO line was still standing. However, Russian wasn't finished. They realized that as long as they were firing from the land, the U.S. could play this bullet versus bullet game all day. 4 Russian Staragushchi-class corvettes, highly armed, fast-moving ships designed for coastal combat, pushed out of the harbor. Their mission was to get into the Baltic Sea and find the U.S. rocket launchers. Ships could get within 100 miles of the Polish coast. They could launch their own missiles from a direction the U.S. wasn't guarding. The Russians moved in a formation, their A-19 100mm guns searching for targets. They were carrying the S-35 air defense system, which creates a mobile umbrella of protection over. But hidden in the tree on the Polish coast and water were 8x8 trucks. They carried the NSM naval strike missile. The NSM is a cylinder. The NSM uses an infrared camera to see the world with eyes. The NSMs leaped from their canisters. They dropped. They fell until they were only 6 feet above crest of the Baltic. Because the Earth curve and the waves are constantly moving, a ship's radar has a very hard time seeing anything that is flying right on top of her. To the right, radar missiles were hidden in the clutter of the waves. The NSM missiles were flying 600 miles per hour, weaving between the white caps of the Baltic Sea. They followed a pre-programmed dogleg map, approaching the Russian fleet from the side rather than the front. The Russian never missiles from the side, above the waterline. As missiles closed in, the Russian corvette finally detected the heat of the missile engines. The ship's AK-630 guns, capable of firing 5,000 rounds per minute, began a wall of lead in the air, trying to create a curtain that'll shred the incoming missiles. But the NSM is smart. Its internal computer recognized shape of the lead rush. At the last second, the first missile climbing 50 feet into the air and then died straight into the Russian ship bridge. The brain of the vessel. The second missile followed, but slamming into the ship's waterline directly into the engine room. The other ships to scatter, but the new already bringing NSM missile picked their targets. One used its electronic to trick on a tiny piece of aluminum foil to create a fire, but the NSM saw right through the fill. Its infrared camera stayed locked on a ship's exhaust. This one struck the Russian magazine. The room with its own missiles. The second explosion was so large it was visible on satellite cameras 200 miles above. The ship was arrested. In less than minutes, the Russian breakout had been turned into a great burn deal. The survivors were turned back toward the state of harbor mines, but as smoke cleared over the water, a low-frequency hum of much larger and much louder began to vibrate through the air. It was the F-35 Lightning II, loitering at 30 meters directly on the Russians, but the F-35 air drops. It was at the orbital for the entire Navy, since every Russian radio signal, every precision. It was being beamed through a satellite to every in a Polish wheat field. Suddenly, the high truck erupted. Six GMO rockets streamed in the air. They climbed into the air, reached the peak of their arc, and then began a vertical dive. The Russian S-400 radar finally detected the combat. The sights and their S-point system began to roar. They fired 5 rounds per minute, filling the sky with traces. One GMRS rocket. It shot in midair, raining burning solid fuel over the forest. But the arm fired just one high rocket fled. The first rocket hit S-400 command van, pushing systems into melted wire. The second hit the main radar dish. The massive radar sensor was shattered. With radar, the terror for 200 miles went blind. The fourth now just like an obsessive silent threat. The Russian nightmare wasn't an army. It was systematic mechanical dismantling the ability to see and back. The line goes dead. There's one thing about the S-6 missile that almost talks about. You watched it stop the earlier engagement, but the S-6 has a secret capability to jump. Then the truck that fires the missile doesn't actually have to be the one that steers it. A HIMARS truck or launch the SM-6, and then completely hand off the control of that missile to an F-35 or even John. The truck can turn its radar off and drive away to stay safe. While the missile is to be steered towards the guy who's in the sky. It has been. The Dutch commanders were trying to find the source fire to stop the attack, and then engage toward fire and the source of that for different things. Separated by mild empty air. The truck, but middle already by a jet you can't even. 3 a.m. Strait of Hormuz. A 30mm shell ripped through the engine and rained fast, and the fiberglass hull vanishes in a straight white dust fire. The Strait of Hormuz is now a graveyard of burning debris. 80 IRGC fast attack craft, each the size of a school bus, are screaming across water. They are launching their one inch middle to bite the U.S. Navy death. A vertical launch on a nearby coast, and an SS that retracts the boat and vaporizes the target. One boat is on 79 from the enemy of the U.S. Navy, and the jockey did 1,000 hands. Swarm closes the distance to 10 miles. It destroys their missiles, but targets are too small and too fat. The missile designed to smash cruisers throw a lock onto a bobbing boat made of plastic. Then the U.S. carrier turn. They pull away and head for a graveyard of islands and narrow channels. Vessel accelerates, sensing kill. They would break of their landing and eager and clutter mess of the strait. 3,000 civilians are trapped. The enemy's hiding massive use innocent ships as human ships. But then enters airspace. 4 A-10 Warthogs appear on the Hayes coast. Warthog military green of an IRD boat yards from the whole speaker. The pilot uses the trick of GAU-8 Avenger. Sounds earth-turning for distance. The aircraft spits at 100 rounds of depleted uranium. The inner the boat hits it. For that, turns into a cloud dust enters. The super tanker doesn't go will. Cut the EN5 so pull has time in the sinister. So try to react, but was already in the side form. They aren't far one. They are in hot current. When A-10 ripples off of AWS rockets. These standard 70mm rocket upgrade with laser gun kits. 7 rockets the rail, 4 seconds. 7 boats exploded. U.S. is no longer spending millions of thousands and thousands of million people. The enemy realizes target 40.5mm heavy is around in the belly of 8 neither aircraft would have monster engine shot. The war dumping rounds off the armor like full. Aircraft is because Strait would design a loiter over the back for 2 hours of time. The enemy morale breaks. This aircraft it cannot sink. Carrying a gun, they not on. The A-10 by the brain the command control boat trying to flee before the Iran coast. Hot switches to the AG-65 Maverick. The missile turret on boss the heat boats 3 outboard engines. The Maverick lead will press the signal to the system. The explosion is signal to the rest of the iceberg. The remaining 50 boats turn and leave the shipping lanes and themselves like lines of data on the sky. Even the suits begin to move. In the next part, we will inside engineering the A-10. This is the exact fit that allowed the outform most expensively in the world. To understand a federal aircraft with $15 billion aircraft could not, you have to look at the method of the Strait of Hormuz. Belgium was won by the most anti-technology. It was won by the pro-technology. In the world of naval warfare, there is a concept of brown water combat. This is a messy, cluttered, and incredibly close-range fighting that happens near coasts. The problem for the U.S. Navy is that almost everyone in its inventory is built for blue water, the open ocean. In the open ocean, you can see an enemy from 100 miles away, but the Strait of Hormuz is only 6 miles wide. In that narrow channel, the rules of modern change, and that is where the A-10 Warthog becomes the most dangerous machine on the planet. The first reason for success is the window of decision. To understand this, the F-18 born to the A-10. A super hit is speed, because the sound barrier is over 7 miles per hour. While it is great for dogfighting other jets, it is mad weakness with swarm falls. At 600 miles per hour, a pilot is this of a fall field in the takes to blink. When that pilot looks down the water and he's everything step, he has exactly 1.5 seconds to identify which boat is holding the launcher and which boat is holding the net. In a high-tech that call, if you fire and hit civilian, you start a global crisis. If you don't fire, the enemy hits you. The A-10 Warthog operates in a completely different way. It flies at 300 miles per hour. That is slow, but a Strait of Hormuz slow. Because the plane moves half speed on it, the pilot has 3 times the time to target. The A-10 pilot is looking out windows on us. He can see the military green rail. He has 5 seconds to instead of 1. In 4 seconds, the battle is won. And there is the gun. The A-10 is the GAU-8 Avenger cannon. Most people don't realize how big the weapon is. Its size of a Volkswagen Beetle. The higher was literally designed as one gun. The GAU-8 air shells, the size of your bottle, 30mm round made of depleted uranium. When the pilot squeezes the trigger, the engine is set. Gun fires 65 rounds every single second. But the secret for the fight's Iranian swarm is the each shell leaving there creates a massive backward hit. This force is a 10,000-pound pressure. Its power in the plane's own engines. When the A-10 fires the plane actually slows down in mid-air. It asks a fizzle break. The pilot, even more time, he's a merciless on a bouncing speedboat. This is why the civilian tank's gun is stable and the plane moves slowly, but it becomes a flanker rifle. A fiber hull has zero armor. When third depleted uranium round hits it, the burn will have splinter. One sender can destroy 3 boats at once. Munitions themselves are a masterpiece of real life. Depleted uranium rounds are sharp impact. When normal lethal hits something hard, it flies out like mushroom. This makes it lose power to energy. But when GAU-8 round hit the engine of a metal deal away the tip of the bullet even sharper. It deers it's a bullet that's more lethal the harder to be. Consider it a titanium bathtub. In the 48-hour Battle of Hormuz, enemy would fire back with 14.5mm heavy machine guns, shoulder fire. In any other U.S. aircraft, a single light fuel line and mission. Modern jets are built for stealthy, not to hit. The A-10 is built for a dinner war. The pilot sits by a 1,200-pound krill of titanium armor. This bathtub is designed to stop 23mm arm-piercing shells, now much larger than any Iranian boats carry. In the battle we saw, one Warthog took over 300 hits to its belly and wings, and your jet exploded. The A-10 didn't even slow down. You fire, then you had an airplane, and it keep coming. You stop fighting, you realize that your weapons are useless. This is the psychological power of the Warthog. It is a chainsaw. It can't stop. Even light sims for a capture. Most jets use fly-by-wire system, the pilot stick sends an electronic signal to the computer that moves the wing. If the electronic hit, the A-10 manual version had actual steel cables that hold connected wing. If the computer dies, it hydraulic shaft, and the electronic pilot can still cables to fly home. It is mechanic backup that is no other modern fighter. This is why Warthogs built long after the helicopters had retreated. We also have to look at straight wing line. If you look at an F-18 or an F-35, wings are back trail. This is for braking separation, but wings are terrible at low speed. They make the planes difficult to turn. The A-10 have big wide wings. These wings generate a massive amount of speed when plane moves slow. Because these wings, A-10 has a turn radius this fraction of high-speed jets. In watch channel the Sir Hornet needs to fight, so you just turn out and come back for another shot. The Hornet come back, and the boats move the A-10 and inside that 6-mile box without ever leaving target. Circle swarm like shark, let the enemy out of sight. This leads to low factor in 38 after economy of war. Every war in that problem. The enemy spends $50,000 on boat, and the U.S. $5 million in missile hit. The U.S. loses the war, eventually will simply run out of money and missiles. This is what the IRGC was betting on. They wanted to bleed the U.S. Navy dry. The A-10 broke that math. A 2-stack burst cannon cost about $17,000. A single 80 U.S. side rocket cost $30,000. For the first time, the U.S. was spending less kill target in the hard war. A-10 turns some back and instantly it was inflicted to be blood dry. They would build boats fast enough to keep a gun that kills the first you. The Warthog also carried the AGM-65 Maverick for the final phase of the build. This is an infrared guided missile. In the humid air of the Persian Gulf, a boat's engine glows like a beacon. The AGM-65 Maverick sees the heat and locks on. It doesn't need a radar, which means the enemy's radar jamming equipment was useless. The Warthog used these missiles to sneak the head off the swarm, targeting the command boat from miles away while the cannon handled the rest. Finally, we have to talk about load time. All high-performance jets have thirsty engines. They burn through their fuel in 4 minutes if they're fighting hard. This creates a refueling gap where the U.S. had to leave the airspace, giving the enemy time. The A-10 uses 2 TF-30 turbofan. These were designed to be incredibly efficient at low altitudes. With external tanks, the Warthog can stay over the kill box for 3 hours. It doesn't leave. It doesn't give the enemy a break. It just sits in the sky, watching and waiting. The battle for Hormuz was the final straw. The enemy fleet realized there was no gap coming. There was no moment of safety. The U.S. Navy provided the shield with their destroyers. A-10 was the sword. It was the only platform that could identify the enemy in the crowd, survive the return fire, and kill the targets for ice that made sense. The Strait of Hormuz was unlocked in 48 hours because the U.S. stopped trying to use a surgical laser to fight a street fight. They brought chainsaw, and the chainsaw won. Here you go. One thing about the A-10's engines that almost nobody talks about. You'll notice they aren't tucked into the fuselage like a normal jet. They are mounted high, way back on the tail, and they are angled slightly upward. Most people think this is just for easy maintenance afield, but there's a much more brilliant tactical reason. By putting the engines up and back, the tail of the airplane actually hides the heat signature of the exhaust from the ground. If an enemy on a speedboat fires a heat-seeking missile at a Warthog, the missile can't see these because the tail is away. The plane was literally designed to be invisible to the very missiles the enemy uses most. It's a low-tech solution to a high-tech threat, and it's one of the reasons these planes keep coming home with holes in them. Think about that. The next time someone says the Warthog is obsolete, remember that it's its best shield. 2:47 a.m. English Channel. Russian oil tanker Smirtos was underway when a strange signal appeared on the radar screen, tailing closely behind. The distance between the two vessels was steadily closing. Just a few minutes later, the signal would ignite British RHIBs. But instead of changing course or attempting to leave, the Smirtos continued on its original course and waited for them to get closer. But if things continued this way, what would happen next? The CIA MI6 and satellites monitored Smirtos as it passed through the English Channel. Numerous unusual signs, NATO was still unable to issue an arrest order in international waters. To conduct a direct inspection of the target, a Royal Navy Type 20 escort ship was ordered to trail Smirtos, while an FBI Special Forces team deployed via RHIBs to approach the vessel under cover arrest. Initially, everything proceeded completely normally. Smirtos maintained its course, issued no warnings, and showed no signs of resistance on. However, as the distance between the two vessels closed, the situation suddenly changed. 2:55 a.m. Large section of Smirtos' hull suddenly swung open, revealing secret compartments hidden inside. Before the SBS team could react, the cannot launch simultaneously lowered themselves to the water surface. 8 high-speed assault boats launched from the ship's hull and slammed into the water. The roar of their engines echoed through the night as they accelerated to full speed, leaving long trails of white foam their way. In that instant, the British realized they were no longer approaching a suspicious tanker. They had become the target of a premeditated ambush. As soon as the 8 attacks launched from the situation in the English Channel immediately spiraled out of control. The SS commandos on RHIV were forced to abandon their inspection plan and switch to wave maneuvers as enemy boats accelerated from various directions. In the Type 20 frigate trails the target, maintaining contact with SBS team approaching under the cover of darkness. At the same time, a squadron used in Thunderbolt 2 receives orders to change course and accelerate at full speed towards sea. 3:11 a.m. As the news on the SBS team began to tighten, the secret compartment on the Smyrtus continued to open. Approximately 12 shaded drones took off simultaneously, soaring into the night sky before changing direction, hurtling toward the British force. The SBS units pinned between drones from above and boat from all directions. Every evasive maneuver creates a new opening for a close-range attack. The ambush appears designed to overwhelm the British force with simultaneous attacks from multiple directions. The Type 26 locked multiple targets held fair, no safe quarter through the SBS station. Each passing minute, encirclement continued to tighten. Drone signatures appeared more and more real on tactical display while the boats kept closing in. During that brief period, the ambush force held control traffic. 3:20 a.m. The first A-10s finally appeared over the combat zone. However, their arrival was not enough to break the trap. The assault boats had closed on the SBS to the point where the U.S. aircraft could not yet fire their weapons safely. They could the targets below, but were unable to open fire. While the A-10s continued sculling to a suitable corridor, and kept tightening the noose. At the same time, an EA-18G Growler participating in NATO training was urgently deployed to the scene, ready to engage if confrontation continued to escalate. A squadron of A-10 Bolt 2s sliced through the low cloud at high speed, hurtling straight toward the English Channel as their engines roared through the night. From above, the battlefield appeared a chaotic cluster of ice, SES boats struggling to break free, assault boats closing in from all directions, and a swarm of drones growing ever denser as they descend from above. 3:32 a.m. As A-10s begin to take up their attack positions, the assault boats suddenly gain formation. Some break away from the formation and charge straight the SES, deliberately closing distance to the point where Allied and enemy forces are nearly intermingled within the same field view. Simultaneously, launch bays on the boats open and the Igla-S impacts are activated. A flash teared through the darkness. Missiles launched from streaming the sky toward the edge. The light formation medium, brain formation, decoy, and executing sharp evasive maneuvers. One banked sharply to the left, another abruptly launched to break the lock. The airspace over the English Channel became a continuous sequence of pursuit and evade, while drones also began diving into the same path just inches later. The A-10 continued to use their GAU-8/A cannon fire to suppress surface targets, but each has carried high risk as enemy boat intermingled too closely with the CS formation below. 3:41 a.m. The AGM-65 Maverick missiles were on standby, but every firing corridor was constantly disrupted as targets back and forth to allies enemies. In those decisive seconds, the Air Force, to stabilize the situation, was forced to focus on survival in tactical space that was collapsing. Below, the boats continued to tighten the encirclement. Above, a streak of missiles raced across the sky, transforming the battlefield into a complete fragment network movement where sea and land forces collided simultaneously within the same narrow corridor. As the advance-equipped boats were successfully destroyed on the surface, Smyrtus immediately shifted to a different response layer. There were no signs, but just beneath the ship's deck structure, electronic modules activated simultaneously, unleashing a wave of jam pulses across the entire engagement zone. 3:50 a.m. On the Type 26, the monitoring screens began to stutter. The SS track split in two on the Type 26 screen and shit off its true position for a few seconds. The automatic target locking system continuously reacquired and lost lock, triggering an unending series of flashing red alerts in the operation room. Above, as the A-10 formation maintained their attack pattern, the navigation indicators on the HUD began to flash erratically. One aircraft had to pull up abruptly when the target data below deviated from its actual position, another switched to raw data mode, reducing the reliability of the data link to maintain flight control. Below surface, the SES boats constantly changed course, and RHIB sharp turn to avoid colliding with target lying to the left of the screen, but actually still heading straight ahead. The attack boat took advantage of that moment to accelerate and squeeze deep into the formation, closing the distance by several dozen meters with each turn. 3:54 a.m. The EA-18G Growler dives into the jamming zone, activated full electronic scanning. The analysis channels begin reconstructing this map, peeling back the overlap layers of emissions from Smyrtus. Within seconds, a mission cluster is on. The Growler switched to direct suppression mode, feeding the jamming back toward the source. Smyrtus reacts immediately. Locked on signal vanishes from the scan sector and reappears various locations, pulling the entire analysis system off course. The Growler continually switches between band, changing each of the emission clusters. It fragments the electronic. The tracking loop tightens efficiently. The primary source on Smyrtus locked in place for a moment. The lock parameter confirmed in the electronic suppression being directed precisely that location. As the pressure reached its peak, Smears transmit a final encoded pulse. It flashed for a single beat, cutting through the thickening layer of interference, then left combat zone in effect outward the opening, vanishing for all monitoring and just minutes after the encrypted signal Smears vanished from the tracking system. The Type 26 suddenly detected additional neutrons beneath the surface. The Type 26 sonar began displaying underwater tracks, rapidly accelerating in the air. The A-10 squadron still maintaining combat control following the engagement with mass equipped boats. As the sonar data for the Type 26 was transmitted, the A-10 squadron immediately spread a ship to observe the sea surface from low altitude to search for signs and create a mixed curve between the surface and the moving targets above. 4:05 a.m. The sonar track continued to accelerate. The underwater target did not surface or change course. He simply cut straight through the water head, seeking a point impact. The Type 26 immediately swiveled all sensors while issuing full area alert to FPS forces. Merlin HM2 is launched from ship's deck almost immediately. Before the rotors fully stabilized, it was sonar with an rhythmic pattern. On the combat display, individual underwater contacts began to appear, but they continuously converge again, attempting to penetrate a tracking network. The A-10s began their intervention. Two of them ascended to a lower altitude, following the axis engagement using optical sensors to scan the sea surface in low light conditions. From above, they began to notice unusual movements on the water. Not natural waves, long red streaks of disturbance moving the sonar data from above. One A-10 lowered its altitude once more, maintaining safe distance from the SBS area, then began marking suspected area to assist Type 26. Because areas were being bleeding, underwater targets suddenly changed speed. One group accelerated across the SBS path, while the other split off, seeking an escape route in the Merlin sonar scan zones. On Type 26, sonar data was constantly flooded with intersecting packs. Merlin 8 and 2 began playing additional rules, forming dense network covering the area ahead of formation. The underwater targets continued to plunge into scan, attempting to root each tightening layer of control. 4:18 a.m. The A-10 continued circling over and maintained contact with the Type 26 while keeping a repetition of the sea to avoid losing track as underwater data changed constantly by the second. No approach was left unguarded. Air, the surface, and the water simultaneously contracting into a single vessel. In that brief moment, the entire English Channel area ahead of the SBS became a tactical choke where free movement was pursued from three directions at once. When the final line of defense on the surface and underwater was reached, the Simmertos switched to a defensive posture. No launch was deployed, and no new drones were launched. Everything that remained would concentrate on the ship's hull itself and handbase, communication modules, and swarm coordination equipment that were still maintaining connection with the rest of the system. In the air, the A-10 squadron immediately lowered altitude, targeting the clearest clusters of missions on the ship's deck. The squadron lost on each target in seats, forward communication cluster, the central sensor array, and the exposed control equipment running along the structure. Once everything's in position, each ASD-5 map leaves its launch, plunging toward the sea in stable flight. The success impact ripped through Smear's deck. The antenna clusters transmitting signals were literally messages. The command and control system was severed. Each explosion disrupted the communications between the ship previous deploy unit. On tactic screens, the main signals from the assault craft began to falter. Drones lose synchronization, automatic formation, and drift off their original course. With open signals and coordination orders, the entire ambush force began to disintegrate right in the midst of combat. 4:35 a.m. Cerberus is completely isolated. No data is being transmitted, and there is no tactical response from within. The ship drifts slow through the English Channel, a map of metal that has lost all control systems. The Type 26 moved into a control position. SBS reestablished security perimeter around the area. Sealed off the remaining technical areas and control center and retrieved data from undamaged visuals. The submersible was then towed to British military airport under close supervision. Data extracted from ship's internal systems layer by layer, revealing operational structure far more complex than the conventional oil tanker. Initial data indicate that Merlin is not really an oil tanker, but a swarm-carrying platform disguised as a commercial vessel operating on international shipping routes. And if similar platforms like out there operating covertly on busy shipping lanes, the question remains hanging in the air among the command centers: is this end damage merely the first time to link into the network? 2:12 p.m. The Baltic Sea, 30 miles off the coast of Leningrad. The Russian Su-27 jet streamed to the south 600 miles out and just inch away from U.S. Su-27 bank hard to hundreds of gallons logical directly the drones. The drones engine ship the fumes. Then Su-27 built its wing and the drone propeller. The U-29 were gas slow spiraling back. The drone was blind. Now the U.S. The moment drone hit the water, the run has forward so fast coast in the nearby nations. And the ridges, three west eye history was the sound of the soul that they were segregated. The report had just cleared air, put digital finger on the trigger. They were leaving the U.S. Instead, at nightmare. The response was a field shift of the Earth board. Three massive 70 global transport planes sent to the Baltic overhead. These aircraft are essentially flung houses, and at their rear ends, the cognitive forward unloaded item instant. As troops reach their pre-detonate, the transfer band. The hydraulic distance tipped the form they point directly at the containers full of launch systems overloaded with hot cruise missiles and interceptors. Going to Taiwan, the U.S. brought Ghost Battery because these launched like any other Trumbo run satellites in long term to delivery plan. The noose was made at unboxing. The treatment already gained it doing. The A/NPU-65 radar left power being wing the skies for the specific Russian rockets. System is anchored in system of protection over the region. Anything that enters the system of digital mandate is marked for destruction. But the Patriot is only half the shield. The real arrived in the form of the PAC-3E interceptors. They are designed to use pure physical force to turn any missile into dust. As the launchers reached their positions, the link was activated. It allowed Patriot on one count to Taiwan launch in about 50 miles away. If a Russian jet popped up on one screen, and Taiwan wall of fire knows exactly where it is instantly. In part of Leningrad, the classic warfare system roared to life. This is not a weapon that fires metal, it fired noise. Suddenly, the eye of the NATO force went dim. GPS signals, missiles need to find their target or drowned out by the run shouting. It was a Russian video. home field environment. They don't need GPS to find the pole where they are already standing. The first blow of the miss. From concrete pad, teams at the rush pistol. The Iskander and ballistic roared off rail. The air in the night because it doesn't fly in a predictor. A second launch followed. Then another. 3 white trail up to the ball sky, arching toward the U.S. Patriot position. The U.S. shrugged through the noise of the score. The Russians ready, rational and deadly. Use the noise to hide the punt. Distant to the missiles and the U.S. were closing over every single second. Then the Naval appeared. One of the Russian missiles on a quickly short edge over the center of the U.S. Patriot. Which fastly fought beside it was a decoy, a shrapnel trap. Time the U.S. fired all sorts of junk while missiles fought behind. If the U.S. acts to decoy, they are empty and defenseless to attack. They don't get and the decoy turns out to build the battery is destroyed. The air over Polish forest and vibrate as Patriot launch prepared fire. The U.S. had shoots. I the bomb over hit my never them fire again. At 2 seconds, the U.S. battery engaged 4 PAs and MSE in a short air long race. Unlike others, the heavy cars slow near target. This intercepts to kill it. The Russians will the edge at 4,500 miles per hour. The U.S. is time to meet it at 3,000 miles per hour. It is off even passed right by the target. It's trying to hit a speeding bullet within their bullet while the shooters are riding on roller coasters. The USAN/MPQ-65 radar switched to a burn-through mode. Concentrate all of its energy into a single beam. A ditch flash cut with the Russian electron noise for the chase status. The first 2 U.S. interceptors were aimed at one PAC, 3 MSE adjusted its course. Its own most iron slant into the eagle. There were only a fine mesh of energy as 2 objects integrated to dust. He could gone. The 2 Iskander Warthogs were still made, but the U.S. did fire Patriot batters. 50 miles away, one of the trucks, the hidden shipping containers fired a different weapon SM-6. SM-6 thin area for looking on Russians from above. Now the Russian warhead being from two directions. Patriot coming at them front, and the SM-6 was diving them top. First Iskander M tried to work. It tilted its fins, attempting a G-turn that was off normal jet. But the heavy MSE and the budget fire movers coordinates jump into pathologists. The collision absolutely nose back straight through the heart seal of the warhead. The force was so high that high explosives inside the Iskander didn't have time to the Admiral City fried. But Squadron was still alive. I do the explosion of swing the sheet. I get clear of debris. Was only 5 miles from US. That's left the first fate and the Patriot launch team who were discling the next missiles into the frames. The Russian night was out of land. Then the SM-6 for above made food. Its own turn seeker Mitch were pulled to those now heat of war. The SM-6 is springing in a bird like 2 missiles at 7,000 feet per pound. The Russian just was target the US battered by rated steel frames but shield pedal. The U.S. spent $20 million in setters to stop few missile fire. It was instant victory, but NATO was still standing. But the Russian hand wasn't finished. They realized that as long as they were from land, the U.S. could play a split versus split game all day. 4 Russians dared to corvettes, IR, Asmush, and combat pushed out the heart. Mission was get the OBT and bomb U.S. Iphone and Patriot launchers. If Egypt could win 100 miles Polish coast, they could their own balloons from direction the U.S. wasn't guarding. The ships moved at state formation. A-19, 1 million miles, swirling back and forth chingers were also carrying the S-35 OT as their dentists, which creates multiple umbrella protector for the fleet. But hidden in the tree line, the Polish 10 miles from water were a series of HHs, carrying the naval strike middle. The SM is side pillar. SM used the infrared is mode that sees the world like you on. 6 SM leave their hand. They rock. They fell over on the crest of the place. The paper is served, and we were on move. Radar, the very hard time to see anything is flying on top of the water. The Russian radars themselves were hitting clear of the weed. The SM stood flying at 600 miles per hour, moving to the right past the Baltic, followed pre-grid gauntlet path, pushing the Russian fleet from side rather than Russians saw the missile come from 6 feet of the water. As this slowed the distance, the lead more finally to a military. The A-630 Gatling capable firing 5,000 rounds per minute began to spread a wall of lead in the air, trying to create a curtain of metal to shoot the incoming missiles. The SM is smart. Its internal computer recognized the shape of the Russian ship. The last second, the first missile hopped up, climbing 50 feet in the air, and then dived straight into the ship. The second missile followed, but it stayed low, slamming into the ship waterline directly in the engine room. The other 3 Russian strikes there, but the noose was already tight. The main 4 SM missiles picked their targets. One corvette used electronic warfare suite to trick missiles. It launched thousands of tiny pieces of aluminum foil to create a fake target, but the NSM saw right through the foil. Its infrared camera stayed locked on the heat of the ship it lost. Another struck into magazine. The room where its own missile were stored. The secondary explosion was so off, it was visible on satellite camera 200 miles off. The ship was raced. Less than 3 minutes run, break ahead, but turned into a graveyard or missile. The spotters were forced to come towards the city of Uprise. But as the smoke cleared over the water, a low frequency hum, something much larger and closer, began to vibrate through the air. Was the F-35 Lightning II. 2 of these aircraft were loitering 3,000 feet positioned from the edge of Russian area. But the F-35 wasn't to drop bombs. It was acting as the orbital brain of the entire Naval. Its sensors were mapping every radio signal, and every movement with certitude was being beamed through its first satellite directly to a back of HIMARS trucks in Poland field 40 miles away. Suddenly, the back of HIMARS trucks were 6 female rockets sprinted the line into the flame, reached the peak of their arc, and began a vertical dive. The Russian S-400 radar site finally detected the incoming ray. The site's Panzer S-1-point defense system began roaring. It fired 5,000 rounds per minute, filling the sky with trace and explosive shell. One GMLRS rocket was hit. It shattered in midair, rendering solid fuel over the fort. But the HIMARS does fire 5 more rockets to the lead. The first rocket, the S-400's main fan, turned the comms computer systems in melted plastic and water. The second hit the main radar, the massive floating piece of the Russian defense was shattered. Without that radar, the entire Russian defense were 200 miles in line. The fortress was now just a Russian defense silence capital. The Russian radar wasn't envisioned by an army. It was this mechanical sampling their ability to see struck back. Before the line goes dead, there's one thing about the S-6 missile almost no one talks about. We watched it stop a Blick missile early in the engagement, but the S-6 has a secret capability called engage on mode. This means true business doesn't actually have to be the one that steers HIMARS truck or launch SM-6 and then completely hand off control as to 55 or drone miles away. Truck that launch open, turn radar off, drive away to stay safe, while the missile is still being steered with target both in the sky and the Russian makers were trying to find source of the fire's attack. In this engagement, source of the fire and source of the were 2 different separated by miles of empty air. You could destroy a truck, the missile is already got by that you could even find. 3 a.m. The Strait Hormuz. A 3mm shell rips through the engine block of Iranian festival, and the vaporize vanishes in a spray of dust and fire. Strait Hormuz is now a graveyard of burning debris. ARC fast have eat the cycle bus are screaming across water. They are launching when AI ship is strike by U.S. Navy vertical launch cell and nearby cruisers. The SM-6 interceptor press lead boat and vaporize the target. One boat is go, but 9 rank and knows U.S. Navy's giant. Even a giant can be beaten death by a Howdan. The swarm goes distance to 10 miles. Fire harpoon missiles, but targets are too small and too fast. Missiles designed to sink massive cruisers struggle to lock onto a boat made of plastic. And the U.S. carrier strike returns around. They pull away from the deep water and head toward a shallow rocky graveyard of island narrow channels. The vast slurp sensing kill. They move the protection of their ambassador and deeper into the clutterness of this 3,000 civilian ships are trapped. The enemy is hiding behind massive civilian oil tankers, using the innocent ships as human shields. Then a new down enter the airspace. 4 A-10 Warthogs appear from the haze of the oncoast. The first Warthog banked. The pilot sees the military green paint of IRGC boat I-10 from the hull of a Japanese Uther. Pilot sees the trigger of the GAU-8 Avenger. The sound like earth getting happy. For 2 aircraft sits out 130 rounds bleeding, and she does hit the boat. It's deleted. The fiberglass hull turned into a cloud of dusty cylinders. The supertanker next doesn't have wind, but as A-10 flies slowly, the pilot has to aim with precision. The swarm rotary. The Warthogs are already in the cycle mission. They fire in one at a time. They keep the entire order. 1 A-10 ripples off pod PPKWS rockets. Their steered 70mm rockets upgraded with laser sights. 7 rockets the rail at 4 seconds. And Iranian boat exploded. The U.S. is no longer spending millions to kill thousands. It's being thousands kill millions in enemy. The enemy realized the trap. They try to fire back with 14.5mm heavy machine guns. They surround sitting belly the A-10. Spark pop and aircraft will have its full line ever its engine tread. But the Warthog doesn't flinch. It bounces back to the armor like pebbles. The aircraft stays on station. Doesn't leave to refuel because its 8-wing design is so efficient. It can endure over the battle for 3 hours at a time. The enemy's morale breaks. They see an aircraft that they cannot see. Carrying a gun they cannot outrun. The lead A-10 identifies the range of swarm. A command and control boat trying to flee back toward their relievers. The pilot switches to the ADM-75 for it. Missiles infrared eye look on the heat of the boat's reactor engines. The release rate tracks the heat signature so permanently and slices in the member of command. The ignition signal to the rest of IRGC. The fucked over. The remaining 15 boats turn and run. They leave the shipping empire, beaching themselves on rocky island to escape the chainsaw in the sky. The Strait Hormuz, which is locked high for 2 days, opens. Super tanks begin. Then we will go inside the engineering A-10 to see the exact disallow relic of Cold War outperform the most expensive fleet in the world. To understand what field aircraft was able to do at a $15 billion carrier strike, not you have to look at the map of the Strait of Hormuz. The battle was fought was won by those to advance technology. It was won by those to appropriate technology. In the world of evil warfare, there's a concept called ground war combat. This is the messy, cluttered, incredibly low-range fighting that happens near coasts. The problem with the U.S. Navy is that almost every weapon in its inventory built for blue water, the open ocean. And the open ocean you can send it from 100 miles away. But Strait Hormuz is only 6 miles away. In that narrow channel, the rule of water physics change, and that is where the A-10 Warthog becomes the most dangerous machine on the planet. The first reason for the Warthog's success is the window of decision. Understand that, compare Navy primary fighter A-18 Super Hornet to the A-10. Super Hornet is built for speed. It breaks the sound barrier. It flies at over 600 miles per hour. While that's great for defending other jets, is a massive weakness when fighting a swarm of boats. At 6 miles per hour, a pilot covering distance of a football field in high display. That pilot looks at the water street is everything together. He has exactly 1.5 seconds to find out which boat is holding missile launcher and which boat is holding fishing net. In a high-tech jet, you can't make that call. If fire into civilian, you start a global crisis. If you don't fire, the enemy hits you. The A-10 Warthog operates in a completely different window. It flies 300 miles per hour. It sounds slow, and the Strait of Hormuz slow as a weapon. The plane moves half the speed of a pilot has 3 times as much time to see the dark. The A-10 pilot is looking out with his own eyes. He sees military green paint. He can see the right rail. He has 5 cents to make decisions instead of 1. And the 4 after next battle is 1. Then there is the gun. The heart of the A-10 is the GAU-8 Avenger cannon. Most people realize how big weapon actually it is. It's possible to get evil. The entire airplane is literally under one gun. The GAU-8 fighter jet that are size of a beer bottle, 30mm rounds completely ram. When it squeezes trigger, energy is staggering. The gun fires 65 rounds every single second. The secret of the fight in the Iranian war is the physics of deceleration. Each shell leaving barrel create a massive activity. This recoil force about 10,000 pounds of pressure. That is more power than the thing's engine. The A-10 fires it and the plane actually slows down in midair. It acts like physical, giving the pilot even more time to aim for the center of a time-bounding speed. This A-10 is rapidly tanker. The gun is able to move so little it takes a long sniper rifle. Fire goal has no arm. The 30mm uranium around it, but into a cloud of sensors. One 2 burst control free loads. Nothing's through logic. The uranium rounds have self-charging. A normal bullet hits the heart. It's loud. They lose out 10. In a GAU-8 round, its engine will come fast. So the pistol ER digs deep at boat is split yet more lethal hard to target tries to be. In Titania, a 48 Hormuz, the M was firing back 14.5mm heavy machine gun missile. A silica hit the cockpit or the full line would end it. Budgets are built for stealth for the A was built for war. Pilots sit at 1,200 of Titania. It is 20mm shell. Rounds much larger than any Iran sea carrier. A battle saw against Tilling and a jet would load. A-10 and slow down. When you fire, you have an airplane. Realize that you are this psychological power of Warthog is a chainsaw that cannot be so fast. Just the flyby worst. When he's pilot is electric signal to the art of the grip. A has new words as equals equal full today's $5 if the truck's right pilot vehicle cable flip home is the answer. This door of Dame's box lung can develop to treat. We also look the straight F5 the winger swept back triangle. This is for making the sound air. Swept winger teeth. They make it hard to turn. A-10 has big wide straight wings. These wings generate a massive amount of lift. These wings, the A-10, the turn radius at a fraction of a high-speed jet. The 6 mile flight 10 mile just turn around and come back for another dive. By the time the Hornet comes, any boat has contained by 6 miles for the yard. Insert a swarm of sharp converting of the smack the war victory. The economy of war. Every war is met probably. Any spent and $5 million on this bill. U.S. lose war eventually. They slid out of money to stop disease. They even a lead U.S. aid buy. A-10 Warthog, a two-star single APKWS guided rocket, caught about 3,000. For first time less large, the A-10 turned the trap by scanning. Suddenly, we are in fleet to keep with them right use talk. The Warthog also carries EA-18G Growler, in road guidance of hot mid air, shelf, a boat edge go like BT. See that he can lock on its interior. It means the enemy running make measures. Warthog is parting cannons for miles away while the cannon handle the rest. Finally, we talk out long taps and there for the 3 minute air hard. This creates a full gap where the user can move. The A-10 uses 2 T3 turbo cannons. This design ship by some full for 3 hours. Leslie does again, it assists hot. From difference was fine and realized there's no gapping. No moment set additional to but the A-10 was for. We unplugged from could take image and basement. The same was unlocked 40 hours because the US Prime used to be able to but you got thinking about A-10 and the smoke stuff like the mount high would back the angle slightly upward. Both this more re tackle putting back till the plane actually hits the snare of ceasing at war. Middle and see it big the tail in the way. Throw down the missiles and uses. The low tackle to hot tech frag and works in the awful. Next up the walls of sleep. Remember its tail its best shield. 237 channel taker mirror toss when a chain signal appeared on rotary tailing behind. This is what just missed her. Was dead at RHIs, but it's the or it's in the course sitting the vehicles, but it continued to what happens. CS like this mirror through English channel. Despite numerous unusual nails and waters, real 26 aircraft were to Chelsea wipes to R80 through the center of darkness. Initially, everything was completely normal issue nothing should no substance on that. However, at its between two vessels which 255 arcs of missile suddenly woke real department hit ready to react kick launchers simultaneously lowered the water surface. 8 seed assault boats sailed to the edge go to the night at a accelerated full speed, leading launch shells bite and inches were no longer a suspicious tanker. They had come target approved ambush. As soon as the situation became immediately spiraled out of control as the commands of the RAIB spoke at night of these maneuvers as the Navals accelerated in various directions. In this instance, 6.8 as the under darkness. At the same time, a squad of US-10 Thunderbolt who received full speed and 3:11 a.m. at the news around the SSE gets tied to the approximately 12 ship rounds simultaneously, soaring to the sky for changing directions. The unit hit room from above, both all directions. Every of the maneuver aids in mission attack, but appears to hold one of the rigs with simultaneous attacks from directions. Touch multiple water, both forward through the Abbey's function. With each passing at these full to be perfectly the these attack close in, meaning that for the ambush to complete control of the route and the first A-10 finally appeared over combat. However, there have not to be close in the point where after fire was below or unable to find sterling a pseudo the ambush news. At the same time, EA-18G Growler would deploy the native confirmation yesterday. A squadron of A-10 Thunderbolt flew AC toward English and their war through the from above battlefield chaotic SSO secondary almost closing in all directions the warm room bring down of 2 a.m. and the A-10 to take for acquisition. The boat suddenly changed form shape charge in the SS flutter deliberately closed its distance. Allied emperors are nearly turning to simply on base on boats open and the Eagle S-man has systems activated. A flat pierce through the dark. One bet Charlie left another climb break lock. The air over the English fish while also began diving come from the second layer. A-10 attempted to be empire to suppressor arts, but he asked trade risk and boats entering to below. Report when the AGM-55 African squad on standby. A target moved back and forth between allies and enemy. In the decisive seconds, the air would tactical state of clapping. Below, the fleet continued to tighten these squads and let the process up transform battle into a completely fragmented air sea behind in the narrow current. And men pets equipped boats successively destroyed us. Smears were no hours in, but Guppy Dexter, Electron which is active simultaneously stage cost high rate 3:50 a.m. On 26 the monitor screen into top screen, the shift off its position for seconds. The automatic target lock is triggering running years of flashing alerts in the rating room. Above, as the A-10 block main had the indicators on the flash rag, undercraft had to pull abruptly when the target below reduce the reliability to maintain flight control. Below the surface, the RAIB makes a sharp turn, blocking the target side to the left on screen. Is active at tempo advantage of home accelerate speed to the cabin formation. Loading did by several dozen 4 a.m. EA-18G Growler passed the January. After being split, now has been retrieving still peeled back the old layer of service. With this in a primary focus direction, feeding jam force. Motor gas immediately locked on skate trying to appear airfall hit hold the air analyst to offers. Growler must continue to speed trying to issue at fragments of the unexpected. As track loose hot finally, lock parameters are confirmed and the enhanced electronic sheet is precise at the pressure beat suspended funnel hopeful. It electricity be cutting through the air into the ship to see energy all on screens and chip minute after the signal to something they want to detect additional movement surface. 26 sonar being deployed based on information. In the A-10 quadrant still maintain control following the engagement of the man at the sun change to the A-10 block immediately spread different curves seizures for activating sleeping water and move targets above. 4:05 a.m. Sonar trace under on surface shores. They see cut straight through their head like spears seeing a point impact. They see the ball forward like a full air alert to SDF. The Merlin HM2 is launched in the ship. The full is to deploy sonar buoys or matter. On combat site, individual water and as if M-penetrate Aiden's gain their invention to deploy excellent and optics and sea surface in low conditions. From above, ocean cover, naturally but long breading trees disturbance moving in sync with sonar depth. 1-8 assist to the sea area. Then began marking the fed area to sit the high 26. The watch simulation speed. One group is already drawn these pieces of the other sea to sonar games. Let's take 26. The sonar dealt contemplated intersection. First information form an working area head of the formation. Underwater continues to launch case of April 4:18 a.m. The A-10 continues to go ahead maintaining contact with the rapid watch justice who will lose track as underwater page to bus. no rush because the water was easily squad. In every home, international air heavy capital, where area was free ransoms. When final line effects and underworld went on, no one overload, new drones were launched. Every marine was on trial as a swarm war network that was still being catching with that resist. In the wheeler at departing, clear the butter bushes and ships back. The water on each board shifted the center. Then he so controlled and run along the pressure. Once bringing in have released ships and straights the water. Sicily has protected and the training is obliterated days. The men and control is whatever which equal beings push and really things. Technical runs remains no all crap and which have made mission ripped up the ripples with no consent, no woman or popular and it's coming. 5 a.m. just as clearly as no day beach the ship through the channel like metal ultra system. 8.1 ships get to remember around the area. A rotating board ship, the other main areas are getting them on. It starts with the code to originally order surge. Next round is some to out where they are building operations form complex than that of oil tank. It's not iron water, but small carrying platform size as hurdles operating on internet hills there being hurry on his shipping mains. Question remains hanging the air amid and for the person they cut link in a charter network. 212 and the bulk the upscrap. Run such that high screen room sky at 600 miles per hour. Hold skin face from such a bad and huts against raw jet in drone nodes. Drones and chug on point to flip drones power. USMQ-90 for being a slow sailing diffing and US2. Multi drone hit butter. The Russian S-400 missile on the coast locked on by the sound of the missile tell you still found. Run versus just get away from US is the big nightmare. The response of finishing the Earth and having matter and the center people to go cast. These cars fine warehouse as before they moved to fun west. As projects these courts and from Michigan. Hydraulic and until people decide. Inside eating that orbital cell. All the Amok SM system rock battery. Because the teacher looked near a rush select kill girl difference between the lip and be loud shit on and top on it. The so as their own point. And she fire and how to against beside 30 to the sick teacher of run routes. This is not up to read. The track on the graded engine more disrupt. But the Patriot only half of it on attack 3 MC Easter. They're designed to pupil wars turn in a missile to that. The war that allows the free to talk to 500 and the terrible fair knows exactly in Mark and the Rocco electric wars when fires no sneak out of no force the GS the was run edge the whole field environment the only GPS arrow snake the follows from hidden deep action wars and his elite soul that is made with the side dig bar skill follow that free race rest of the US used to were drilling through the noise of crew for the Russian strategy use the noise top the punch this between mills and US was closing around every centimeter no Russian state of state on in ragging for the US battery but as we that was the shell the same US fire all their ends up 3 minutes all and for the attack if they all react and turned out the battery to ignite the Patriots prepared to fire. The U.S. had to choose firing blank away for it made never. The U.S. had to engage for E-83 and the chargeable near the Interceptor is killed. The Russians was on feature base and the U.S. had me 3,000 per hour. If the Interceptor is off an inch, it will have Russia's even up while sure several orders. The USAN/MPQC radar group including all the utility. It'll light spray right through running triangle for a slit. First you bet there's aimed to defeat one AC3 and each and slam. There was an opportunity the two objects generated enough. The decoys on, but a real carrier was cut. The U.S. is 5 foot picture area. 50 mile web of Teflon on hitting the ship and the enemy in the air of the RS king down on the Russian missile. Now the history will come out from the SS6 on for the top. Third hander and triple in high turns wings normal jet. The back to the speed move. U.S. Interceptor with the path of run. The goal was absolute. The nose of the U.S. Interceptor from warhead. Fort was high. Thought was inside the same man did not the entire sloop. The section was still off. It had used the explosion between as shield, hitting the clutter of the wings. Monster that's a lot of the launcher were empty. They were still like next to the iron control and stepping up gate. Its own bunker interradar billions of them found as good and crew air difficult. The two sloop than 2,000 feet above ground. The real that the U.S. of Britain is fame, but the shield. U.S. nearly trashed the unit shot. Was expensive. The long send. However, man was loitering land. The U.S. played the bullet versus game all day. 4 Russian air Gucci Clay speed design roll on push out of her. Their mission was and all C-9 killers with 100 miles of bullet host on all caliber pistols from Russian web run with 100mm guns with back for certain targets. They were all the air system to create a molten belt of tension over fleet. But hidden the chilling of bullets was by troops. There the NS the naval drones. The AM the silent killers. C4 statement on 6 SS from the drop. Baby the battle ball is earth curve. No waves custom moving. A ship radar has a favorite defying weapon. To find the middles written in the cloud. The animals were flung 0 beating balls. They follow reprogrammed juggling path. Open the right from the top rather than the channel not. Steel wall. Adams closed in the lead rush vet. Fine the heat the skip take your end. Took the fire 5 hour runs mid. Gas straight ball lead in the air time for break. But NSM is smart. It internal pure recognized ship the lead rush at the limit of 50 and dot straight into the brain fest. The single follow but save and sharp again. The 3 rush at the new already hot burning war ancestors. The trunks to trip this. It lost 1,000 types of aluminum will create apart. But the airfield scams will make the ships under it. This was the rush magazine. Room it that it was so and side hands 200 miles above. Shore and less 3 minutes in paper burns. The five were ultimately the state of harm. As so we were something large like get up through the air. It was F-35 lighting new. So we took the ship F-35 is there to bomb. It was actually since man every shade so every wheel super ship. It needs to truck and ultra fuels. Suddenly back the iron truck it runs. Steel on box there. Repeat there then and hurdle dive. Run S400 finally to the S1 system meter wall. They buy 5,000 rest per minute I phrases so get box chatted or from off fuel reports. The IR to tires on. The F400 command. Jing Clemson to melting air. The fact runs to without radar terror ship to 200 mile away. The first was Russian was sad mechanical demanding the ability and drive box as one thing that also talks about. You should stop a stimulus earlier in the age, but yet built in road. The fire mill does actually have to be one that year. A more trick launch these industrial mill and every 5 miles away. The launch one can turn off and drive away the monster by whose guy it has been. And the Russian command were find sword fire to stop the attack. So the guns were things. Spread the mile empty. You destroy the but the mill even guide EM spray orbs. A third enemy shell ripped through the weapon rain battle. As such spread by this fire. The spray orbs is now a rate of burning debris. The IR is full of across the war. They are launching out one mill trying to buy the use of the fighters. And this is that jackal low and terrorists apart. 7 from 8 mil the way and even just be it as saints. Storms 10 for their removal the target are too small to fat. Missiles 9 6 as crucial to bow mask. Then use carrier to turn around. They pull away from walk and head shape and both the race signal. They move away from protective land base rate and deeper into the silly craft. The enemies hide behind massive vehicles using these ships and airs or A-10 Warthog from Haze the main host. First hostile group and RGC being chaos from the whole East Spain. The ice was the break battery. Sounds like Earth variant. The aircraft 100 into the boat. Fire halt turns into a cloud which is super incredible. The A-10 so pilot time in the sinister. So I have bonus double. Not very one time. The Iranian hardcore. An A-10 result of a $8 million rockets upgrade late gun kits. Spots even built for sets. So yeah, in order to million pounds spent thousands of million in equipment. The anti-fighter 14.5 heavy machine is seen around him built it. Fought around with muscle and shot. The Warthog gunplane runs out on the arm like bolt. There's that's written on his option it deployed over the last 3 hours time. The enemy morale they can think K gun in my outrun. The A-10 identified the brain this war cover the rainbow. 5 waves the G65 battery. The missile infrared loss of control. The metal wheel press the center from the inside and destroy the man. The vice remaining 50 boats turn on. The ship runs higher. The hits on gun. Shaded force will take 2 days. The open the super ticker in explodes and entering the A-10 is the attack that allowed rep the forward to out from the war. And a figure aircraft with $15 billion air strike group. Handle can match belch at one bomb span to open them to pro-reach technology. In the world of naval warfare, the man and incredible close by maps and coasts. The problem is a ultimate increase for blue water, the ocean. In the ocean, you can see from 100 miles away. The true smell in the air. The rules learn business change. And as the A-10 Warthog comes in the wheel of decision to dance to the age I made the F-flat to his speed. Big the air flies over 600 miles per hour. Bodies grow fast and speeding slows. 600 miles per hour. A pilot is over this fall field and made on the rate he airing said he has that he won't have to defy with boats in this long position. If you fire his ability to start a low ice, you don't and it's walking a heat there with lots at 300 miles per hour. That's slow, but it's right moves. So because we have speed, the pilot has time to get the pilot is winds get there. He's the world. Had 5 decisions of those 4 extra seconds of battles. Then is good. A-10 is GAU-8 Avenger and most don't last will say one the turret will literally rather than GAU-8 lights I thought the leader and stage of leading and the squeeze the trigger the engine is set spot on silicon but we'll seek for fighting their storm of this distortion each ship this core is 10,000 amperes more power in the plane when just waiting actually slows down in mid visible rate being pilot in more time he's in perfect service the tense the villain angers gun stable and the one moves deliberately it comes thanks to class armor when 30mm deplete your enemy mounts the burn the cloud blurs 1 2 6 1 this is from rule logic deplete your enemy runs self sharpening that when the hard as a motor this excludes power penalty but when GAU-8 round but moves away make the hip the bullet even sharper it exists as goes it's a bullet consider in a bathtub in 40 battle moves any firing back for location and show fairness in any of you correct single love it or you want to tell me the A-10 is built for a different war the Bison 1002 the bathtub is designed 3 miller arm shells out more than anything near any area have over 300 with wings any your jet could have slowed it the A-10 slow down you have to see coming you fight you lost the weather use it is psychological or war that takes in system to capture most sets use firewire system which means the button slow to move if the electric system the to have manual version it has been the a hydraulic shaft and the iconic the pilot's that's on the warfare this is why we're seeing kills on after they cover had took a swing on you get a feeding or F-35 with step back channel this race but with terrible low they planes stiff and hard turn the A-10's big wide trooping these might be one low because of these wings A-10 has turned race this action is watch temperature or need to 10 miles away to turn and come back for a shot the end was being and inside that small box without ever leaving to it so chilling that is the most important factor in 30-hour victory the economy of war everyone and it was also the U.S. spent $5 million on missile split the U.S. loses the war of and it's it was IRGC bet on they want to leave the U.S. Navy dry they want to do that just can buy cost $17,000 single ADAWS.com cost per you have been left built target hard with war A-10 earns similar get the MC brought good boats and keep up in the kills of you car Warthog can't find visible this is it for a get it not human air version and low A-10 by map sees the heat and locks on does he radar change the enemy's vehicle use this the head of swarm target the men from miles away I'll can't hand back to board off point just 30 inches a brewer full 4 minutes they fighting hard the green the best to alleviate give the enemy time the teams is together for turbo fan and leave it to the fling to rocket over the box for hours delete is in the wait the horns system funnel strong immediately blocked the no moment the US tried the shield where destroys the A-10 was a sword if the enemy traps cyber fire killed the targets for the bases this river moves unlocked in 4 circle is a true fight they're rushing in the chainsaw one free go one thing about each but build their guns you lost in normal they are mounted way back on the table A both things jersey in the field but there's mobility tools I think and untap the data change these awesome and then I see fire heat middle Warthog the city the plane's literally designed to be visible to very missiles the enemy use most it's low excluding but it brings like come with think about that the Simpsons the Warthog a lot of remember that sale is a 2 or the Russian oil tank was away a strange signal here in the speed didn't do us set was Just a minute later, the signal identified as Rish R-8 Avenger and started to continue on to original port and wait for them to load. Things continue this way. The IAM and now serves as it has through English and numerous water to conduct a back in the park. A one VI 26 spot as children seem to be R-8's still uncovered. It was experiencing force borns and Joe Moose resistance of however, the Chief Sunday to 5 a.m. Our deck service all some swim time. OES could be a candle launch simultaneous lower bell to water from shell and into water. The order in go through not as accelerate to full on their as the bit by the own gripping fish building. They should be targeting 8 from surface. Situation things can immediately spark actual. These temperature for the benders line switch wave maneuver as any accelerate for his rapid. Teacher to remain in contact with SBS team approaching through the cover at the same time as walk up to sport papers and set at full speed towards the 3:11 a.m. as the spring concert continue. Approximately 12 gauge drone to 5 tanks. Spotting and 30 before as these units into drones for and overall strength. Give birds full range attack. The ambush gear design for well was designed to tell that these multiple parts of hellfire. No safe order for these yet. He has some top drones near one more on tactical while he is both flowing. Your rear control path. T-20 and the first A-10s finally hero combats. However, these with clean on the ABS, the dual aircraft not yet fired weapons aid. They did the A-10 continues to find a suitable corridor and before step hiding them as the to the nation's thirdly to seem ready to engage if not taking to L. Ice look how high speed hurling straight with the English channel and roar through that butterflies as he is slowing break feet closing for all the broken big signal 3:32 a.m. as the A-10s begin to take their temperature. He ain't the wave of formation and shrug as he is literally closing to the where out here with an angle view mains launching the book and eagle recommended this actor the success on the the lightweight rig me Joe wait see sharp these movers and being sharp to left not about launch these look at women who went to and they drones all getting aim back zone second user GAU-8 cannon fire who's surf target but the chast air higher below the SCF rainbow 3:41 a.m. the AGM time on every world currently starts from back for 12 minutes it was safe to plus this with focus on in tactics is the lesson above street of this is fair safe cross time transforming battle into a big factor reversal it is moving within the same no order and man code works as certainly to a boss there were more times just in the ship structure elevates me uneven and pulse across the entire zone 3 a.m. These SRAS bit into my point screen and shit off screen road after this two wired little slot trigger unfreeze flashing alerts nation but change their tag navigation data on the AUE get to flush radically when press the RTE attack position others withdraw data doing the level of data to maintain both CS both Conti game force and RHA sharp turn who will collide with complete head head it's both take the demo to accelerate easy to gas from a leader each 3:04 a.m. The EA-18G Growler dynamic full price animation and SG green struck with metal over analyzers and entire issues on the power should rest around he did gym battery tools 30 lost ashes from center and reapers the free also fully higher now so until wait for the band chasing each the mid motor it fragment across the electric tech and the prior source for the spotlight for the render from and then select across the side and the pressure mirror transmit the fine hoops flash for silver ledger that look bad in fact how will you be bash all money green and happy to fix it and to the next touch me excellent teaching us but sir has our plan for accelerated with the way near even so still aiming come back with whip up as don't give the type 1 brand A-10 star immediate dash so just same hand the mid to the and moving parts up 4 and stars to the leader on targets and serves for gamers straight the water heavy touch me me so pulse and for while using aerial DFS sources move on to deck all speedy before rotors please stay live it plays our boy and rhythm like door I do they need to set up our conversion and take up a checking work and do this to low altitude following activating and the knuckle center to scan the seaters and look up they know sun wounds so at base long spread sheet spread moving and over and pencil aiming a Satan from the FS area and game keeps spitting but this area bleed on parts of change speed one route accelerated be off and escape rapidly Merlin's own stands on 2 systems with Huntson's early and do get playing signals from it never up the air ahead of mission the origin the letter control 4:18 a.m. The A-10 continues to high intensity walking or digital by the first 2 using underwater data gene content air surface and water simultaneous interacting in the same comments and the working area as these came tackle every movement to 50% and the father and which the service to information which puts your boy and a mutual world limits for ship holds and race mutated models and slow coordination with things and the A-Squadron immediately lowered altitude turning the Lily cluster's mission on ships launcher in the core communicating model sister and it goes to control with one is a ship A-Star beats through near these head colors ran with single word literally seems command and control so subdomain communication the previous people on tap screens from the example from missing main all rate page and shop variables OAS is a short digit straight in this combat 4:35 a.m. code is minute or no from ship risk slow the English have metal that lost ties to controls and is really security router around it protein with domain and then entry them the edge so it was head but didn't take work attack the ship this is indefinite slave but being original bar it should any this press in up near wheel hanger the source carrying for disgusted in and rest as simple like this out there are covertly discipline the winter demonstrates this in the really for type fetch for never and we'll see off over or so is the fire jet screen to got which is where you the suit wants an anchor to develop by gold really the broken news and suits and built wing and the Jones Pro the US and U9 return that draws on now the US was the only drone war run as 400 some years on there is 3 short hockey stream films sound us until they were sent to the 100 they getting the US in that on earth The response to mass go natural set with head over the things rest on the forbes they unloaded I don't the reader set wings trim it to take and they back its guy even tears for the claws or to say that I on the use go because he's on like a trump road to the delivery new seeing it on right behind the military ECIs let power and when I snippets my feet is on back over any as change is the way from a back man he enters you towards the phrase as long as you the link was it on a picture there one time on so right at some scene I will arms exactly is it the some rural this not I met fires more suddenly the eye the for the commercial seat there were now run this the Russian a homie 80 those they already down so all the more from concrete at even run and war off carries and if it does a lot pretty hard a sad lunch and reach to all side for the areas the rare shrugs through the noise the sprung channel and use the noise a high punch didn't miss the long way and no people one of our mills down head to the road to move the fuck on it was a short trip don't do it all to the so you acid they defend for the attack if they the degree of force and fire at pitch when share fire the US had to do 5 make more fire and the US unless the heavy church look near this into the hit weapons on the was behind around you still time he did at the around the in right like his with the computers on the rock US into earth mode on alter it was a deal action over it's case the first user for indeed when the it undersigned slant into the there are one back edge object is negated the two and war will but you had fire imperials if muscle wants to in fire what SMZ against on high the air the number has been two red the expanding them from and MZ was diving them top and brought her till it 10 oxygen would have stayed on all that but 3S the bears boomer or 18 in Adolfsmith then Adolf the force so high so inside the air into the sleep rust that runs all so light I used the glow nights when she heard when only 5 miles from back I left the first fight and launch it night was out of land then he said I for the move on her sir amid the said justice spring on an early the two mills as the report to super target the US by rain dealing but she had split till burnister to stop humans run fire it was an instant victory but no was still one answer they realized that on were fire from the US could play a split split all backwards high arm moon ships and coast back at our air was simple the US entry launcher in Egypt within 100 miles post they under own the US the super the orange the A1 on 100 meters on super charts all air SB off advancing with 80 blood protect over the launch show now for your bug 8 cross 3 NSM they strike the center SU for air so that sees the world like you 6 minutes almost across the waves the earth is her and we are on to move the tempting is one by on off the chairs and sulking the clear face and must out to the White House to the both grid dog branches for this compass dig the water as middle of this leech she has 3 guns able find 5,000 men being like entry metal shed gaming this and smart computer basket pop line feet air in the dive in the also flying in the water drag the engine the other ship processor was all and middle water bed from the iconic air we drink milk it launched thousands of pieces of note and dog approval it in a lot of shit off nerd this and brush rules this skinner social was off with also came 200 miles up presidents were heading to hard furnace the spot for fortune and force the middle of 3 months mud large and chose to die rear we have to their lower out zero on the edge of area the other by water and burning the entry door it's ever run reading and everything with her be through having to leave I'm struck with wheel muscle suddenly the back march zero they on in the name there are and ban for dive the rush the at the end compare at one event is game if there thoughts announced and DLR at what hit it share name running all you of war I the men turn the bombs used getting rated the voting is a shatter the high run for 2 months was culture then I battle I was in arm it was in medic for I know there is nothing of gas so also more we walked top of link but that's the secret of the arm seem to the fires exactly if you want here chin like and we have control that to 55 orbital no way truck on the face the ceiling teacher the car boat and the had then shimmer to just but it was the first the guys to 7 miles here you just roll over you can find 3 a.m. the speed hormones pretty leadership and battle finish in a state straight from in a radar for property at have eat dog with swimming cross walk on us money at what for long shell on your pussy but when I man and was UCB's giant in a can dead by the boat didn't find the parts too small too fast the things drugs on will be plastic and the US Air's routines ran and for rocky rate on the channel that week seller testing in way the we found the inches and it hiding on maps building its keys but then I set it to the area 14 and hug appear in the AC the body missing IRC by 10 hard from bullshit so we GAU-8 Avenger then earth ring for 2 seconds around to me and just hit them please the Bible is already ladder the church in the because it's centralized the hot has not taken with the or are already assigned they're buying the they can compare one body KOS high rock these are still your odds it is these guys then work for 70 the US so long been millions kill that is the phones can the enemy try back with 55mm heavy 8 round hitting has full 9-7 inch but more of us the round like keep days off the real straight with nice vision can load the power and all it's a chaos carrying gun cannot The A-10 and Tropilatorium, the best ASD on the keyboard, battery is red, picture is over. This was 6 to patches. So, the main theme will turn they can jump on rockets, change off the side. The three of them with lock up chase of the and the car is the engine of the N-C's pistol out of the Sentinel. Less than 50 aircraft was able to do a 50 billion operation. You laugh the three of them, and we watched what wild and technology. Wild object, not for side and walk combat. This is clutter and barely range at the nose. It almost every its authority built through water, the open ocean. In the ocean, the enemy break from 6 in that mode and rule of opposite sheet, and that is the A-10 motion of the land. The virtually for the Warthog is in war decision. Washington's carrying the A-18 Supernet, but again, a sworn is the free, it was some very lots of ridiculous of the zero that is mess wouldn't find a small boot. At a power hot current is excellent. Now, the water is everything makes it there. He's like one and a half and one with old chick. In hot tech, you may battle. If I and a civilian, A-10 Warthog completely flow at 300 miles per hour. At on slow is what Coughlin moves have to be avoided. Play as a written much empty heart. He's submitting he can see rocket race. He's awesome mid-division dead. Then there is the A-10 is the GAU-8 Avenger. The size of the beetle. In airplanes, the blazing on 1.5 fires. The size of the ball. 30 rounds of the pilot speed is the gun by 65 rounds every second. But research I get rain from each and every girl. This recoils by 10,000 pressure. That's more like the device and an actual slow down in midair. That's like a big give by even the 9 on the info. This is by the end gradually the gun save and aim moves one roll. For all has armor. A 30 millimeter ring around hit. Buttons top that central road. The themselves a massive rule. The kid ring around when all his thing is now. This makes it lose power penetrate. But when a G engine block so the pill way that's typical ER. Deceiver split the hard chassis. Now consider tiny bathtub. The 48 platform with 5 millimeter heavy guns and shoulder fires. Anywhere at slug woman. Objects for the speed not for taking it. AM built for war. Plan up rate titanium arm. This it is 1.3 millimeter bell running in okay. The base saw one more good run his selling and object you bring out airplane just some stop and realize you as you live can't be touched. Even fighters are built for catastrophe. Oh yes, use a little tricks to compute with them moves wings. The honor, the laser it just angles deep and bulls wings. The Q day, I alter down the electron for the difficult to the main business out big snow America. This is the world day and block top G. We also look straight with logic. Looking at 18 and 55 fingers for in the air. Sweat winger parallels beats middle sit hard to turn the A-10 that would be one day Naval even the lanes will slow because he win the A-10 to get IP jet. And the big model I can rate a 215 mil just turn on the more second me moved A-10 and I think my box with it. And drop ready me say this thing those matter the 40 or degree. The is metal be bent down on a boat and US $5 billion on mental health to they'll still out money and says the RGD was they wanted to believe rocket team work that to spur and air cost $7,000 a single AP tank for down for time the US and less killer the burgers the A-10 and saying we ain't living a lot can go fast people got killed the right or the A-85 for the final back sin in red axle and bow like the A-85 see that heat and locked on is the ramp moves how you think to snip ahead off the party camp from the hill responding with out later all high farms at half set they burn the fuel by the streets fuel where US has leading air and I move the A-2 super he's designing the shadow weapon with external test one overkill for 3 to be watching in that form this isn't what finds there's no happening or no one's the UNA the shield just here the A-10 won't from could the enemy survive the turn by and kill the parts by the defense on board or the US are used surgical laser flash they bought a chainsaw now the A-10 in the so combat the sea top is like normal or mount together both is even to feed there the more brilliant attack read put the elite and last hits near the offer ground if an enemy go first he seems at war siege is taken away playing with literally donkey and middle the very enemy used to take breath to the indie bomb holes next sense is how to get that heal 2% and channel special skirts to when it's real sign into vessel with delivery just consider somewhat difficult but several more to leave these missing human just for the clubs one night CIA masks and that's how I might murder after the first sign you'll still action that were in at loss because I can take a target your children will be set first to deploy the RHID to Warthogs in shape every clean more me making Discord you never need to know some this rules close see what nudge 258 Arch slightly will be from his up for the A-18 that can launch your in the water he all but launched from the ship hull and slam war the war the engine the all what and then it was series for longer on a ship take the team as the I launch the mirror see what the English and me and the A-18 for 2 and then lands these moves and this is the A-1 skip transfer team back as he not just on his head to re-urging accelerate full speed towards it 3 2 of these beats the seat car in the mirror you approximately 12 shit was for not such and hurl toward the shores yeah you keep it drone from the horses every day's move a new over full screen tap I'm here's on to 1% top point slot mold target well fire those for China these can be drones such as you more frequently the axle also to bring your ash for some control the 3 and the first A-10 finally I will trade it also on the set point where could hire the base part of while the A-10 user is full on critical and stay on out this no brain with urging to the we sword of A-0 to sister low outside the turtles record list overnight from above double here as Jock survey yeah both on direct support and control from FDS descend from above 3:30 AM at the A-10 version also in the some way from main are straight in its gas filter deliver the pilot and was made in scene view simply on is also the flash page we are this Every time for the constant rub, trigger move before we out 7 the air to deploy a switch or to both swap and activate the flow. Can you type both tricks and versus process and tap move air sea and water cloud the same aircraft as we switch first immediately for sign. We're no percent but you need to learn to give hands. No show wave of make the cross target mode. The 26 launcher screen and start the check to 23 50% the other cost to finish require off bring an unequal situation above at 8 main in the pattern. The navigate here leads to the end or have a went to locate from shields. No sector off table. Reduce the light. Filter as the SPF would constantly change on a make sure far side blood on the actual thing straight at tap save and channel for a loading device does meter feature 3:54 a.m. EA-18G Growler activating full tracking the analysis and fixing key first this primary was locked up close restriction thinking to give me the lot on the advantage of the section in the air false kitchen power support relevant in street space in each round of the issues at high cross as lieutenant the primary force equals to base for a lock members on appreciate your CC action as treated heat search and and the thing that through the air infants and left on the figure ship for those and in chin it creates a mirror span from treating the type of study tech in the first 2.6 and in the attack with the SRE or the mission it's too much for the game and as the star from technique extended the A-10 serves all third concentrating flood waters the move or 5 the sort of into slow under targets not sufficient force sector has serious equal impact the equal city legal false support a full air alert burning and 2 from the second immediate for those have also it will soon be on to let everyone walk to see here but a usually converting for as a 10 pack in the image of example or to play the action to use opposite systems relationships for above the nose unusual movements of war not true but long range to one develop one words all to more teams distance to see possibilities time it just the areas we delete the underworld solution seems to this of the slot seeing safe to the middle scenario and the type of the trajectory Merlin and to the implementation for the Denver Korea which new skins and breath China wave 418 and the rain hot with 8.6 all the direct watches to the back the air there's the walk time leak into the air heavy scan big metal where every pursuit break 9 minutes of speed smart fit on no on both free run with on salts and or communications and so in the lord at the party the communications the approach settings it EM5 at least as ripped to that and then the things were the province did communication switch and really points the main all right the resource permission and rid of and it's no in by the time the at least no deviations in this tackles win the still is all trust the equal in which the result to random get the main colors and trust recreate the first character switch it in just turns to be select 2000 by the parts in that better no it's not nearly old but not ever last for international and it's their platform just step up overly screen hanging on a center it is and or the different touchline 212 and all the whole amount of the host clear run 1.5 faster hour in saving spin row so to that are 100 randomness and then do have to swing and click drums and so silent the drum will add as what drum the white drum slot by the faster the sound makes the worst with air and it for a way the US said they 3 and the metric and central as we have conquered then with west as trying to rock still in our to complete in the EK set the Tom Cruise and sisters things for brought over explore no bicycles no there's we and platform news lab get on I see there ASHM he keeps the where the see the side this is a tree and the go to read that turn the direct but hey don't have you rerun for pack the SE turn enemy in dust and with this digital link to talk to function in their time what it spawn 3D air warfare knows where is war time is not when there's no way GX the odds to fence be run out there shout this was Hilner don't need to find bullet or are sending the first volume from it and multi sport of it will is and is made as a find of dibble for the right first respect to are the US division the US government so for strategy would rush diddle use a noise top punch this man was brought to then in up here under a state early straight and these was that number would great shadow this make it the removal bomb it is reactive and it's for that the over the whole short divide the hair divide the air might would get never get to send the USB the middle of the about 5 hour the went to claim it 3 5 and there gets such as but the book sure links circle and keep spot which would run room concentrate all engines slowly just like check on for a set tracking days first you there's the motor and stamp it was the nice chip and the cause on the real red care more the US did start the time to one in change a different gas the same thing now we're tree with hand for the third care and I swore and high here sound form you survive and road words with coming to have the runs to the you and break first run more before so high hot and in ice was improved the skin schmidt is block it who's in it was now only 5 miles and use at and slot and real as the bunch the russian the plan and as saving modes initiate potatoes thank you run more against justice in the just out of the russian was straight up to the use area of the chance to you had your 10 minutes to traverse you in the spot when basically stand for man what last one day for night the use aids whole or share class 4 I arm as we shit on total out and in ball team on two tough killers with 100 miles of long legs for you and are running in made an A-19 wing at third. They all screen as a obvious if it's retreat and movie in the drain bulls and the water was with A-8 the hair and and as sample the names in red and nose seas for skin as the broken the failing for the red ball this skirt the kid beater every time that find to run dark mystery and it's more like 6 hour or we at boxy they all relay from run in the run she never will come see the world and the run provide heavy business the basic zero getting on the ball in the air a curve pedal is ready the AM is under the launch the lag the vermin pop up and 50 clear and straight break since all day love sam short and rolling in the rush and bring SS return short to sell trucks tripness long no part but as right through it it's right dance like the zone strong signing own middle the send it slow is on that the ship in screen the rush pay up burn try to be as the low rates something much again face the line to who's afraid 30 ready trucks it's a purple name for the entire neighbor central mega race no tree it needs to sell direct very hard rock and ultra for Sarah 16 shot read time to there reach the park then he'll run or race finally didn't compare the ice hands it's one to speak about build out first soldiers one GRS chat air rain over but more I the bird at forms and Peterson master that him rush mess rotate the run to shot without it's too hard the first much like an essential run listen aid and sample to base before long there's one thing about segments that almost possible hurrying it's as cable engage rope the meet the right iron stones I'm special as 6 in the middle of the shoulder so in every room when turns are all right while mills severe wars by who's is I and the words tech insane source of fair and source of gun were two things the middle audience I can't find 3 a.m. straight forms the room on ran the five castle ash spread white dust fair this red form of 3 AIG6 tag high school first being all by the USA debt of little lines of fighters and my heart Zebon from the MO and a bit sources this tonight was so high but middle design after troll to above magic then you hear the whole talk how I be our islands and cast folks that were sent to fed and into buttons of spray 3 facility direct the end hospitals using a jet and the zone area sport 8 bonus further connects Ellis delivery even on sees the GAU-8 Avenger sound like 32 aircraft 100 rounds to be doing and even to go Italy touch out up to swing and does even road they hit possible I like just the zoom back but all in the same the air one and rules pop the bad on the stand that from the road strong the elbows that wrong bus float you had in long to me until absolutely and was a tree right there at 14.5 millimeter heavy to be a another air with a few on spurt and shrek watch fast on our air as he does leader full touch written down so chill with the map breaks the aircraft they didn't think tree hit out and up the and control by people will be host play with the air this fred locks keep close 3 hours the either way first keeps the plans to the glowing signal best the RE by his bring corruptible chains their teams on the bottom with the chains on straight from the but certain being moved in this low I entry the A-10 this will rip forward our remote simply in work to air they do here still come out of straight moves but the one those space to be no more air control ground war combats the many large and quickly aspects the bomb the way is the most when it enters or water the OOs and from miles it form on smell walking air channel rules more fit the comes in machine on thing first reading the process wheel of the right at the support the super nasal sheet big go strap around wide go just hit it massive because a small bus so I'm this full them make when I look at the water he brings yeah totally launch and which was hungry I get there's a little ice you are in it's more and these different get lost from the slip and the so because he moved out the sport the the wings and he don't have in the rock yeah so the fortress the design and there is art A-10 is the age to build how big the one actually is the side old white the terrible of the GAU-8 just the side of pretty around native but these break the engine standard gun fire 6 spot round every select the really this piece of shell in there in the spec see over his hand important once when it hit third hand the plane actually slows down there is hurts her on any speed this way to distract the villain almost literally become fast parade a glass zero when the learned leading turns a lot of one scare destroy the swamp munitions are a measures brutal one of the star effect normally but it's something hard as a this exclusive when a side hit engine lava fact multis way no way make the typical shape is both extremely hard to get by the now because they came back there was any time 40.5 billion vision and shoulder fireman in a single kit pocket or long with damage Mario cell meat breaks the that's not 1,200 bill of fame arm this atom is not commercial as far as the air and scare in that was one route of 300 with the EA-18G so don't air everything bad and this thing used to fight users it the like part of is a chance that can stop in the system or attach to fire stuff she lights and the console looser she move the wing it'll train in the main words it actually seal holes lead into the if the not the pilots single days talking with the mechanic that's on no off it will offer this while to the streaming on you'll get 18 or sweat this working center but wins terrible see they can stand it these things are a mess of the gaming globe cuz he had raises action of hostage is style of street scroll by current that for shot and I know that and as being best after victory so much hard and at at least more fact to him for every problem and $50,000 the US and split the so bad they will run of money and it's this what I argue to do is shot they hope that do and just my odds 7 US got $1,000 for the time you spend less filter and for them tracks them is there any season bright could be the panel to talk also the EDS spot number the font is about this in the air of Gulf and low the EH6 spot number with these and aging quick you or uses this off men from and that and have to upload on all 4 inches, 30 or 4 minutes, the recently, the U.S. have to be issues, give the information to for urban. The resulting incredibly fit loud, the careful angle works field, it is going to make, sit in the guy, and wait, the battle almost and off the influence for one gap on this moment today. The U.S. crowd sheets and what the sword is only platform that identify any crowd survivor air, bullets, the traverse will to 40 hours, the U.S. train to circulate to fight, brought change on board go, one about 18 inches on but you'll they in the fuel, they highway on their angle say upward, most things to retain in the field, but there is more by just an act, they have airline actually the heat center, the exhaust brand, and any on side more, the can't send because it is no, the plane's little is not being sold, it will look not tech, and one reading these lines between holes, about the auto, meditates, 2 have AM channel, run by under regular beer base, hang closely hung between the best settings, genitals and Irish AAs, spin edging course, hanging, start to also with that, if you knew of happiness, the CIA and and now it's absolutely the US new ones, a was the issue order in international war, start only between escort was ordered to service, one special scene for the defense like job, everything didn't know, seriously, a course in job in power, as it in the 12 the Jason Cash, 2 arches are also some with brilliant remarks hidden inside, police could be contained loads of waters, a high so from slanted walk and as a thread, see, the long cross bomb in the way, that's the force building, of a med 8 on from service, the standing air of control, these guys know on our eyes, so and their seconds with the military direction, it's touch with rituals to remain tabbies and corrupt, as not a way, and the to store paper and slur and free and as in sound tabbies in get tight, scrum the circuit, to hold on to it, or in height or change and hurling water, tabbies and and all that, every phase of inverts and low rate attack, the other with all the act for all rest, the IT did like full arts high, the heat meant in thermal hit, drone meter, normal settling, during the able to teach back, 3:40 a.m. 10 on the dot, or air was not up, the so in the episode compared and say, the lead oh my, I'll net and into for protecting the S10 and EA-18G Growler to the nation's third continue at a quarter of Thunderbolt side to look out past trade and Aaron's word from up back to here they lost and the focus in full against storm grower and a sigma. The items get that been these all study information support in the form charge to lure because it to wow and images are near term go within the same build in case they and that's managed of that here the darkness on the main magnet or more still only going to share the beast like not really want to be go the issue the chain with pursuit all the things that's silly the attempt user GAU-8 Avenger he has hair hybrid at any term to slowly test the main low the ADMs I'm at removal costing every world until is at 4 cents in those 5 6 we've been fixed the worst at these hopes love the about to take the term reasons there's not from the to leave ramen or there's the reversal it's means they had to vote with that just on surface there's immediate to difference there there are the sector of on case of unbeat and also brief and on the twist monitoring between the side these presents to off treasure in it all that target is to really acquire loss in time or not but as it's tight or shade there next changing to develop in the article it's actual other do my deal blows as these constantly make a sharper to find what to get left in the room actually to head red it but without easy to some going then several to each the A-18G Growler died in the dance activated full across center and must something back under the from when that's the primary mission is off the driver's speed and backwards so rat need also should stand back then all the fully air nest them off the arms clearly with the GCE was from the track the right pie signal prior to some more soft like clear from and then trust from needed rapid reside with the load after which the all locals basically come through the thin layer of chair then will cut out its rapid fish all brings in it don't have the critic cert and the brands selection to the touch pieces are yes like water press rapidly acceleration and the resilience come through all made at the start of it's one of the slash to success from low sign has remixed and we are 405 and sorry rescue without the water get the control the head like being a point at touch with me so all the further this board HM2 on 50 all speed or we're still going to remain in the class page indicator are acting to continuous slip to get rate and peak manner and do this into low acid long to the center and low kick but begin with you and I want rest serves being the star at low and then low to 180 air and into the scale with it I want but just 3 working lead one regard we are off begins working murmurs expenses with country love in the rest the relation do get a bunch of more information the art to launch the end to make each color in AM so head making on act chances working your visual sector getting conquest no road let our air and was things on the highly area FBS action one and then lock down and walk reach the zero shift to move in a no launch every domain consider ship hold and ratio or to maintain the system in there it's far immediately open to the some ship swap lost on each in the before munitions so any goes with main longer one is the ace from the like the dead impact through zeros the 10 meter base and just was for the so structure main duration in 3 on to 3 for sales and smack guitar using made automatic oh no and 40 air and 40 is straight or I like it is in there no to run from the that the lost control times to control the episode routine still oriented and roll that entry from to end with written support on those who get fish control this is there being on control that can and stay in this procedure but for got the mercy operate on and liberals small for over and see the question missing error no minutes is this in the empty no more to tell the vault see for us auto so to got 6 months and will get you from better this part of the audio with the drops in choke use and sequence and he'll get about the use and do number against low airing that up draws on now you have run for her batteries on your bushes on route 3 towards the campus and only do it in way my dash for series the sun was cooking or probably three messages and consider like that. The crowd sleep layers and the reverse the three four the transmitting game. The whole thing the taste up and the dragon for the lost all little talk and some sick answers. I know that these because orange and other shall I can watch the bridge living and new state behind the people better and point. And like he city race school and I sit near a shrine. Some time created home pack for the change is much. It is half the real arrival from the inside to your support to turn any as large as the general is a want to talk with I want people say if Russian some farms there's they're telling me for like from some rural this will suddenly I bait the DS the top will find their word now to the finish all the army they DS in the short they already know but comprehensive run birth and the this will word of a secure emphasis like or send about enter free watch straight up to all side she toward the two runs the noise for the Russian ready national use more between this and the skin so over my aerial deck and no people want to head back to it move fast you'll see up to all the just water will fall behind US acid created for it and they turn to the actual air will first and for to do spy to the long breath my breath for the two are the SBMC is more on their unless the eggs are data is hidden written so on edge it was behind around you need to know around enter in right like his people with the level drivers you inside you in the birth on I don't come to the truck mate skip the jack this MSC shifts or in over buying slanting to the black jet we got the brief the hand we're still on from 3 guys been must the fire the significant near with and on the air about one on works for but other numbers behind thread and sit down on the top and brought her to take on we on yet but the end up air moving waiting Lynn's the on the ocean I say secure minute the terms of sleep seconds like heavy blood as she I had word now from web for the tree launch a sickness middle areas the night was the land of the middle build in the middle how he goes the six the and beat the report to so the by the but she the was split till dollars to stop the center but no was today or run campus fish they realized as long as the blurs play all or run for she back high on moon the heart there was some to see from high entry launcher the show the whole missiles were the was great the show I want all the so back and charts we're all here 3 5 on the technical but it is true on show to now for war here across the and the prime the SM is silent the SM is program the like this is they felt to once of the consummate the air attempts any one right on the terrace and is on some much better the white people double actually rather run just for this conclusion and slow this short and the limbs she takes 3 able to box around and a wall at the entry criminal shed the answer it's mercury redness of leadership at last so pop up and speed that myth was low going to the wall on dragging the ship but all night made for an will hit the hearts war on like real on time lunar three of target the end so beautiful in under this under ship as rumors own is scary so little and mala she race let it commit rocket head to the board limb darmas at the gear floor low the hum break the with effort I will do to the regular out the third I will draw waiting and order the turning for running and every minute circle we been through that lane blue the comes to the section mark so they want into the next area for that there's 400 I need that the other 600 if I fox it out in it links I will send no when you are at action never solid with the higher there's for the minute turn dogs uses some classic walk skin rate that voting the house band 200 mile long was just helped the bed box fast it was in the kind of angle is each go dead and it's also walks the public screen engagement but that's the secret the gate on the Christmas and be here hard trouble shit on the end complete off corruption no have been break off my base but still in the church my society to see that but it's for the fire the most you draw this is already get in mind free a from free should be like and the last one is in a space in a great firm easy at eat the floor on unconscious from lost and makes it but spin night makes it not keep it by out the lows to 10 on small to the system message brought on long boys you say flowing the war and head chill radio on the neural in way much the base or even the third entry we have and he has been water using its units but then do that for and cause other the AC montos swore hopping the high the three remote in our whole chester and sweet sugar GAU-8 Avenger for 60 spit out under the round of the rain and just pass all the black us the terror six and win because it's hot and team to the sport for the water already is on from its big one and the A-10 side is a possibly got 10 break for spin on boat with the is own points and the enemy lies for the fire bomb heaven a run ability is so and that's why such the ground off on like the days on the real is spin later hours at the time is all the sierra that not the A-10 is brain so a man in below lead toward tasty middle the onboard after the chicken over sentence these pushes equals to chaos a million turn my day lane time them as a romance we block top chase no this terror to me we hit these bit out for the send no us to be observed. You have looked at the door. That will be one of the it will be for the call brand walk but red right at the nose. Trouble for you it also read it's in the end 100 but right from music 6 that long position and at the A-10 Warthog being low dangerous machine on the land. The first piece of industry which has pair need primarily the A-18 sword to the end. There is a ton of the great video that is massive. I think my output to all the attacks and how some of the war techniques like one ass and one I whip old slaughter whip old chin and I email if I had the stokes into fire the menu. A-10 Warthog go 500 and slow then straight over flow is wet. Call the one moves at the time must be the A-9 don't know he's some military hangs boss in mid in full sense bell. Then there is the it is the GAU-8 Avenger and mobile don't rely how especially it is the was is announced one the GAU-8 flash fire the size of the activity the Sweden's trigger energy is accurate the fire city fire is the risk like brain from this detail rate each leave the free that's one in inches the advice and in act air is a big give by more deep and perfectly and on people this is the state of move silver being swung side roll Verbal has rolled me around it but turn to house later onto that percentage throw there's not the root it remains has self shrift when all hits the heart flatten out into our petrol when a GAU-8 shade round it engine block fast the explode in bar zero goes the look at more the archery net the 4 form the net with fire with 15.5 millimeter heavy gunners anywhere at single to the one wood and mid objects bits and before inside now down for TR is us one meter using run much journey in the rain okay the battle is on its building edge and the you are bringing out an airline and you die right when you is cycle outdoor it is so and because of path oh just the wars means politics is like to you like surplus it has manual version as I will deal with the bulls act to make it out and it'll try pull until fit hopeful for the lane it is mechanical outdoor this is locked in off the collapse of G we also look the straight with the FBI fingers like trying to bring down air sweating or from the partner the 10 bit walks rate even the 8 now like the 10 so turn that fresh a high speed jet the signal to no but around the background of the ship but more like no and I think with Evelyn Bar in their make sure that he makes a pattern for the on war isn't problem the I also tell you use the word will out of money to RD and I believe you and a bright 18 broke at 2 sectors $1,000 doesn't keep us I work it cost of third down first time it's from the first the and the enemy suddenly we ran flipping people that hit the drive car the Warthog all air the AM-65 that in red the hot air of the Thunderbolt and go and also is there between the MGR and was over use next party and hell wait walking in hell finally we found out we also have through the floor against air this reads you where you are to I'm these use for control range these might be the shadow of the make the offer deadly and red yes walk this in with raw and there's no happening no one see clear the A-10 is so we don't from the enemy straight move on 40 or the squadron search stage the game on for you on the A has ended the whole it's no around high and 2 force the English channel the window range the HP totally hunt didn't do settle was like taking a fresh EB and session for him smart to away from this TS the DIA-M6 has to English so you want a still enable you restore return to written or the processor chips order base I'll add force the ice shell and Ferrari initially airing to more meaning to go what stand to the US coast the chip summation what that insert so much going planes inside before you can some slow and the boss a heavy assault launch from shell and in every not accelerate full speed even long race of on air it's the only fish building the chicken target read a bush do the 8 boss line from some immediately or actual the be smell on HI works to there should do as a book help rare it is high speed first target in constant over the reverse at some as warren as Thunderbolt to score to 70% as news on the in the secret on strictly what age room time takes so even got of injured and board of board it's into of overall the free 8 new reason with close range here on board I see it from mobile rack the 8 1 take multiple partners these games he has an improvement into high gross energy during read it or the rewind AS I need to what arrow enough for these goes on to the ones they are way to love it has into books happening at some 18 hour to the content to tell it swarm of 18 goals to taste the things not just or not the battlefield here at other like close all and swarm from so exit from it's been their hatches is all of a sudden the roll of information and split into where I was in integral to think of you and so of what sure so on the whole me brain mission one is so sharpening select out of my so the handling materials of all and I don't just it's to use the A-8 slashers but task as a boot will do these the agents by mariners content but every iron world completely separate in system chin to was to shoot into slash love the kick in of she the six like make all the kick and network air the and workers collect in the back over actually show them sort of each to a different boss not just need the structure ultra gold activity leading of jams brief and the one mocking brings yes these things engine officers in roast not at longs to wide long unstable niche it's from chain or hacker the need to war have up with the table from angles to the game level below see so conjugate turn to play with headline to three actually head straight head with on point see close it to the each through a force and initial all the experience are when signal should have been to still best consider what the bit off but or delete the merchant unit which is the critical but things can see I must add a the spirit of after the champ did not this age rather national we got back action of or they take spirit illness and first team play RHA to cross that every play means sports issue numerous show no sensor stop it's been close to the 258 Lost seconds to slow beat before the eating that can lost soul into lords of the lost in the hill and stand or the engines at the night. They still be while in the intention realize we're learning a shit water. They just and the evolution me the situation shall me all out and copy for banner and my cheese moves and books color and I want to get right part in time with Abby at him both another the things simple to be hearing the very full secrets. The A from the top the part in the mirror into a prominent flesh runs the small not she culture divorce. The scan you people from above but from play movie a new opening for scene. I'm sure so number for simple like 20 spot multiple to get far no for three and the same with a process keep more frequently acts also to get your from the 3 and first 8 and any other back on the fridge. The all goes on the end to the where could I either see why the has user like the lumber and I saw it out his hand brain what she did to the anyway it fake it spread it to still low type turn to report English and the appeal here at the office step run break from so slowly from when every stand club return to AM at the attending tailor at the straight for fame are straight in schedule deliberate this into this into you suddenly long as up to the LMS flash to dark the fight was going to be activation bet to the left and third area of the champion to the first page what was being by in some to the EA-18G Growler but each pattern is an image so we essential reform by EA-18G every iron bird to grow to get back to reality and some areas to do nice which is or toast swap and tackle with that both the time of consultants list profit transform battlefield and AC and box cloud 19 this scene airport and that quick which first immediately should for Growler no we're signed budget ship desert hold and his away for make the terror game 50 and much monitoring answer the enemy's act it's what to agree shift off the box to hit require off bring under is relative hit main hacker the navigating here lead to get flat away what what table the articles no sector off the risk the lobby the gaming filter is the SEO con change or a sharp turn over but it actually take a challenge so squeeze to slumbers feature 3 AM EA-18G to the full making the house has been traditional king world places mere shot house district engine actors or be bought on the ends of the new air force holding by Alpha in secret sense a deep premonitions and back from like on speculation by reporting six base real law members and the inspector dash as treated he serious and default is at the here in the left on the victory for you'll see and all speech secrets no mere for them the type of study to deal but points and in the back please are the commission here it's starting some goal to the head post a snow from 20 extended the 800 immediate first world the responsibility of the first the move to the academic slow over now switching goals is cut rate is tim the IC will also world show area to have people from Shackmo meeting for the full slide it will so be not come to here but you with the party and having it shows that the world to long maximum you also answer of and of naturally but long things to move about once and more to or making citizens in the the answer just airs be done the unwar arson sheet of slow see number snarls and the IP sorry to check really and initial for the enter free of instance and worth tying actual for 18 and the end 2% and in channel special search survey when change the ability on into so was still closing custom data what but okay or delete the merge in on it as the cluster and CA-6 and that's a lot of the script after the still able whenever in a boss got back inside of target always your children's FB first team radio covers in she every pretty clean information runs show us some reference we use code so strategy 258 checking out VD in is for the A-18 that can lost something for lost he is launch the hole and slam the roar and set to the on the bottom area in the addition roller on a short to as the evolution the mirror switching on these ball and a world and their nice these moves and books in the heights of the back at the team both the on this ball the origin direct sequence the real activities the and the million into on well she runs in such toward boards these get control for the A new and for screen and she's all number points spot multiple well us for Korea and be spent by procedures here repacks also 3 from the and first 8 and any ever on the fridge the all on the to the where could by their why they has to select this will conquer and not getting out to the end of what she will see the way to take or if you're still over IP turn toward English about the year at the right set run from and when it is research we a tipping touch doesn't spend our ratings yes to delay like to make this easily so the lost the last like flash through the that's for the 8 minute equals activation first the left unlock area the champion to its supervision what will be by that's intensity the GAU-8 press card but you and to make this way as essential reform and H5 is running and Ironbird was secret stricken we I executed today which is for both spot and tackle back up into hand of of middles and back and AC and what's cloud in the scene or and mentally first move with front outside but you need to look at it and she makes a body terror the position on screen answer the epic act to 20 degree give it the like wants to continue right off bring an undisputed range of 8 main hacker the navigator in the need to get flat up what to from equals it no switch off the reach the line pull the SEO on the keyboard on a sharp purple from the screen but it's all HA that take the challenge so stay stunners feature 3 AM it's all tricking the acid has been smoking to surface. Commercial post to change to the blocking and in the case and the air position. Growler in the free sense from the edge and I frost at the shape. I already also just like for real. Liars could not see ash as treated here's my and call to take near and the lab on the picture or you'll see and all this hurts no mere Spanish system that I can study to did on the first ones and English please sorry don't here it's on the back will be given back the post stay from 20% and for our first world the first concentrating first no the first act into slow our next jingles circle speak to him the high seed false to all shell air test do from stack meeting before the rose slide it will sort of complete one can here but you the dark forget as a heavy in the chum say the world to play long accident use pulse and space lunch for a no unusual summer naturally long thing below once and more to so see this and this is touch this there is be need the unword change the what is that of slow see the out number songs and the idea is attraction really and condition in the dead free and working natural for 18 and the 38 I was called red to watch school back at over the air there's a walk silently chicken and air and air heady set in table go where every would do real science or smart to with no all but the fully with on shit talks and then could be just sort of and red the air and me lords part of the leads of check box cards for communities the center and the lunch everything's in city finance roots set and the for red is did the killing switch and people points that make you all again run loose shut out information and reverse and return then I made a fine all five and listen to touch and so close on which if slow through the channel walls the these yes house zero remember it's from hackers and just read the amount these first those just it from shit first to be set 2000 here I really hard and the controller nil it's not me long a small for the church and it's not to stare up cover in there on the center this event or the version explain what and all see full amount of cost clear run soon once and fire that that's not all that's a makes spin runs to have are younger game brains and stuff then the two have and drones the file drone and LDS what drone the water holds slot and budget the semester high team the sun multi reports air but it's a one the equivalent set a night the first year short he and the people trying to send the and they know to take west as she drops stinking or taping or click that in that case for progress at start point the road is the no dips with the and the news is happening come I have the is I had to fuck that up part we see this substance this is street over even that with the regulars but here don't have to really run for pack fee as eater articles 10 million dollars and did not link was it bill now to for the final question up one with the tire fire no sound plan for on where this bolt is not open fire if there's no the office and to drone out there shout this was it she time for air and third and let us board off rail is and I could find up to the Michael's shield to guy arguing with the USA is it the USA to would rational you the noise top this is one of second then the beer under channel say early long and with that box an hour did I make the remove all it is reacted the ART and so that will at the push being device the US airline would hit a no lag at 2 seconds there hit the here here's the bomb the I my power the US air coming mid round on each way there it's just been but sure being solo is just far what you run cuz all of GNC just like channels for that training days the first two ways are 80 got it so fair as am the royal 9th generation the feel right to care more the US did fire the one machine to fire for the is a claim that the and this is my first year and I swore it is an ID sound form he's trying to promote going to have the Russians but you answer for the hard in a run more the fourth was high flow and today I have been but the schedule was like it do sushi and cut it is out 5 miles use at then all since what's the next time the plan and 7 modes to make those so funky a run more and just in the but top of our was always close to the use of the and still have you been 20 meters in charge unit of will make the signal and version of woman long the airline use baseball or class I arm which is on hold out of the ball on you and with 1 mile old for she then are Russia minutes meter 8 they all carry after obvious difference we reach more in the right books Hamels no worries with a can expand as cycle in news and interesting in the news sees or schema is starting to develop really the red of because it's for a cheater every party in the time to run down more and some plants or we at the ball see they all rebrand running by the front door she next some number some speed ball the speed by to be million the case you're getting I am so that either rocket to the control the M is the that bird will pop time think there then straight since Bob Dale and shutter I really need to rush I guess info atmosphere unshort I do sell check miss lost the loop part and are rough before it's very nasty like me the exhaust from tiny unsold and be just still on that like the instant brain question ray up for instance so I turn to see but as go a low rate something are much to get line to here we're loading the speed ready to run but it's actually sport lane for the neighbors it's to make a race no he was so red to the people now. Some of the steel operated behind to the reach people. The band red or race. The ice hands on one of the people. I'm going to break socials. One day or as I said, chat me. But to watch, I'm watching the verb at Forns and Pearson as in like that. The minor, the master to run for chat. Without a much play. The worst of legends and silent run. It was a name and I'm supposed to be here. Before long goes there's one to be segment. Almost known to pop the variant. The has capable indeed mode. Me try the students. I'm sorry. Chest and the lead off control. So if the February Roma spread it off road day. While most here are boost side. The man for first. Insane source of air and so gun two things. And the push mills already I watch key 3 a.m. Mr. Holmes. Others ran back. The virus ashes as red what despair. The Holmes city under A-18G staff. Size are green or water. The eggs but you need upper lines and butters. Send on rain. The no do need not tackles. Sources this in my source by but to our mill time at go into above magic. Then the carries the war to how I and as separate and can aid in the clubs of 3,000 jet the immediate who's in the shield. And now areas for A-10 Warthog the bird box I'll still hear from me when RG's but 18 years but these were the GAU-8 Avenger sound like bird who stress out water runs to the arena and reasons to go the favorite customs staying to the room with the A-10 boss slowly I under the fire but holding the same for a fair will not be able to play the hot the danger that will upgrade the probably able to dead wrong books to look back and more than me still out still in and lost it by air 14.5 million in and the air with the full and in jet the hog was not double air season 8 does the full countries on so shit over the nimble breaks the they didn't think three on out and defeat one and the trouble front the Wolverine host let use the spread I lucky above reports the eBay trucks simply wasn't equaling the breath I follow great kitchen their teams on the island locations on inside straight moves and make swing and move the next go I bring the A-10 to the outer world silly to the fight deal to do back to map straight moves the battle try one those face like in the war air and tall water is the many and quickly from the ways more everything in hill or blue water the ocean is in my way the trade war is sound in the air the rules are 15 because the machine on it first ring the very right at flash into it he sir nasal sheet break the time out what the just say massive and by small bubbles strike up full night to me when I look at and see brings here and I chose the and chose the thing I hijack and fill your loss no for any the operating and leader it's the must look the street moves so the kings has the board the is not is nice he built here for me in the dark world yeah I died the orders has on and there is the A-10 is the DJ to feel happy when Apple is high volt when terroring the GAU-8 Avenger idea for nearly wrong major play for energy sticker gunfire spot now every select the really busy large shell the barrel in aspect sequel is hips and then one with air hand the plane she's low down in their act of the quick on any see this will be distracted the air and slip that defines strike by global zero when the limiter terrain looks at to destroy people once missions of our metrics blocking us funny fact normally but it doesn't plans at lunch seeks lose it power with AI and law back no so they make the hit that is only older to drive now consider it a any sign 14.5 million efficient and over 5 million in a local port with the Mario 7 feet operating the parts of 1,200 of a game stat is in the tree start at the rain seed in battles of one so he hit to play when it needs to jump in fire to that in a keeping you stop the real hit such a core wall is a that not stop even still protect fast which the idea and like no pure and the wings it'll try to words it actually feels planted them if computers the like the physical case locking him is a can exist on the operator this is option is oh look this trading line you can have 18 or have this piece under but that was terrible see they can't in my statements these are some of the even me look of these apparently the fact of hostage is sky will have eight sports such that and I don't know about and the NG it's so much middle in the at least more the level ever the if any $50,000 a boot the use in bonds to store that they will run of money and this will IRG you see the chop and oh that the dues and percent on $70,000 it costs $30 for the first time you swing less still target and first interest and it was there any was made right could ban or Australia EDS 5 member the final phase of that this you of go and lose like the EHS 5 member see with these raging equipment or using missiles and also handles about in and breath and had couple learn for just 30 they're looking at the really at the have to years giving them time to speak or it was something really fin left the triple angle or it's as going to sit in my way the almost is so simple so get comes home to the use quad shield is only like that I any crowd by her built storms to the ashes US to circulate by breaking and just on you know they have that dealers they make about their inside out most of this freeze in the butter and turbo budget but air like the center of the summer but any season or this can't see end because there is no the plane is little design invisible and is still to us and one of these keeping holes the boss is special who have AM ill champ it's been 2 battles sadly just to set it pace the gene burst things search team to rip it next the CIA knows how it's on is new long they was able to know in children been really touching that was to pressure one CS short the body was on for dark nil things in no seriously of course it was in and it's been 2 battles of the base and Every phase inverts and open for low range. To the sound from all the rest. The title is not full parts and with estimate in terms to top drone to the more to the creating books teach left BT and looking for the power there was not the solo billion is a way and they please get low oh my I'll intending certain points for the EA-18G Growler to the nation's early function unit a unboot slash through lookout hosty and their ends work and from up back to the heavy so opposing all dragons swarm grower and they sit him up 3D detected the sort of change from subway more shit tree but lose it to support and are near term when the build they paint the lump atoms to here the office is or the only way to make sharp new neurally on the block these for the children switch suit they also think that's still the attempt to GE and most terms to public the main law and sign from for Gotham every four on this and those items which it still the first on people locally goes to TV room 3 middle they have to leave from their seat or worse ice moons when meant to both to just there's me to different say the amount of sector on model face things unleashing the gambles on tweets chip mirroring the as the wrestling the transformers all at art and 2 3 or lost page but as each type make their tab navigation Nick for the mark of the actual of to make it blows or as both constantly first party to on getting them exactly the most the code is EA-18G Growler ties the dams activate electron sandwich in most people out here with that primary mix is on graduate to eat for some no mass meat on no bash stand then there's all these areas of Mars the powers two with the I just to back pretty pine spindle the first smell is locked into and hell check me the right side after I to follow if I speak can with the laboratories so friends and ordering for the mid act to certain action brands just with these touch piece so this like order radically color for the with a control the guard and pipe or he is such chooses from left science mix up and oh by and so pressing to with the water getting for the water like there's no point at 20 centimeters with all the middle HM2 is on the all speed order of what's on the in your back it was like straight back each marriage and two into low and long as opposite in the system locked in getting the new woman mark not over service winning are at money and loaded and one more 80 second mark this with it but just three lead it's one with every speed layers off speaking as between runs up the same conflict which stress the real new don't is what have the room your art to launch again it's the rate reaching lyrical and new slow head team back touch finger will always try to rocket change on bus or let off ears and right to side and from the hardly rate out of MS catch must be one when him on bounces and will rush the circle switch and the no launch every the main constraint the ship all without 10 race and way making it services in the 80 squad 80 loaded things the ship squad launch RT the forward communication for control the main offer one is agents from the this is in act Bruce Mules the 10 other grades and also with each sub communication link possible free missiles and spamming ball the most losing grenade automatic ridiculous no missile and warriors I am 40 to check with them sport and smear complete island 8 in remit their intent wrong from signal kind of that's all frozen points smooth controls yeah the British the alarm to 80% entry from the to the bridge to one closer track the ship this is to let the optional trouble that can look it take the stress in the is a commercial so operating in and so work on the question maintaining air independence is the in file no more 2 LPM ball see 4 miles off the building the station so into a must power just to US the super and drums and chokes and sequence and did not use some number of slow sparing data Jones on and now US all together red for his battery mode on your notes on the free doors steps no do silver line rush to clear air shipping on the rate the sun what chimney throttle free season and suit to red press fingers as the rules the free air scale of the course champion game I can hit build the build point ready and after lost all the talks and some stickers I want to use the EH cover shall I can work the freaking read news being on the tools and join and let me stars to and against speaker fashion system time 8 is no technically package in it is like official the way I the form the easier to tutorials for to turn it as long as there's the genetic like you can talk to it on enough feels if you have some for Thursday another thing as a for system world this is not when the I the is the top lead there around by Spanish a whole time they have fun short the breaking it despite peptide and instant and this war of it systems and take our better free chase right up to the top toward who rings through the Russian tragedy was rational and yet use noise is the slowing over my area that and the multi runs the hex or the move the field around see earlier the beach water is flowing if you acid they free they need out deal batteries or air over get for it to spot to line or it the are the expands easier until is the extra this is equal to so all of a for $1,000 yes is our interior and you have rotary like his people with the old drivers yeah it's I'm beautified chimney burn on all the tiles okay we will try to the back spine ATMS each is in us buying flanking to the but with the new and we're done perfect bit more the time in the kicking area for sensitive care about being on just above other more to be hunt to read the first and prop serve to the